Hello, and welcome. Today's little video will be the second round, at least relative to me, of Kaldheim spoilers and what I think their impact, if any, will be on the historic best of 3 metagame. Now, hopefully, if I have gotten a better grasp on this like I think I have, I should be a little less rambly, although, begging your pardon, I'm probably still going to be. How we rate these, however, is I'm pretty much purely a historic player. I very rarely dabble in other formats besides, kitchen table, and I want to get into Commander. So but those are in order my importance in the formats I play. And we're just going to do like a very loose, like 5-star rating kind of thing. And there is no, other than how I'm feeling about a card, any 1 to 5 star, any rating can be for whatever reason. Again, this is more just kind of base reactions, or as much as I can hope to be. Last time, if I've done my homework correctly, we ended with Kaya's Onslaught. So we'll just start the next card, Bloodline Pretender, and then we'll just go up the wall of spoilers. Now, with all that preamble out of the way, let's try and get into this. And speaking of Bloodline Pretender, Bloodline Pretender is a 3-mana, 2/2 artifact shapeshifter who has Changeling. As Bloodline Pretender enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever another creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Bloodline Pretender. It's like a weird inverse of Metallic Mimic, whatever the hell that Kaladesh block thing is. I mean, it's an okay budget option, I guess. The fact that it has Changeling is what saves it. Other than that, every particular tribe you really care about more cares about going wide and pumping your entire board than pumping one thing really big. I'm certain there are weird corner case ones where you might want to get +1/+1 counters on the Pretender itself. Maybe. I'm honestly going to kind of give this a 1. There might be a couple corner cases where it stands out, but 1 star out of 5. Next is Guardian Gladewalker, 1 and a green for a 1/1 shapeshifter who is also Changeling. I'm just going to start calling them Changelings to save time. When Guardian Gladewalker enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Okay. This is like a good teaching card, and I see its usefulness in draft to help stitch together weird draft decks. As far as historic best of 3 is concerned, I mean, it's a green shapeshifter, so it's a budget filler. I'll give it a 2-star rating only because it kind of does 2 things. I mean, a 2-win. If I'm understanding how this works right, it can put the counter on itself. So at worst, it's a Changeling bear, and at best can say help prop up budget builds of certain tribal decks, and the 1/1 counter might have relevancy, but that remains to be seen. So I'll give it a 2-star. Next, probably should just scroll wheel this bad boy. Legiara Ken Seeker is 3 and a blue for a 2/4 Changeling creature. When it enters the battlefield, if you control 3 or more creatures that share a creature type, put a +1/+1 counter on Legiara Seekers and scry 1. Again, Changeling is nice because it can go in everything. Or it can go in whatever tribe you want it to go in. It's a teaching card, and it's a good teaching card, or a first, a player's first Magic deck. It's like a 1 out of Yeah, it's like a 1 out of 5. It's just it's fine. It's a teaching card. It does what it needs to do. Changeling is the only thing that really saves it, because again, it can be what you need it to be. Next is, oh god, Morite of the Frost. Pardon any sort of, on this card and any future or past cards, my butchering of the intended pronunciation. But I'm just kind of going with my gut here. So, our Morite of the Frost. 2 a green and 2 blue for a legendary snow changeling. That is 0/0, but you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a permanent you control. Any permanent, so it can be a land if you want, but why you would be silly. But I guess that's to make it, I guess, an okay floor. Anywho, you can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a permanent you control, except it's legendary, and is snow, in addition to its other type. If it's a creature, it is with additional 2 1/1 counters on it and has changeling. It's okay. I could see some weird snow changeling tribal and commander to be like a thing you could get it to go, or get it to go in. As far as historic BO3, I mean, maybe if you have some really important permanents you want copies, like additional copies of past the 4 of. Earlier I said I try not to pay attention to other formats besides, again, historic best of 3 and like commander, but I'm not an idiot. I do know and see when they're meant for other formats. Again, it's like changeling saves it. It's nice if you have some sort of like shapeshifter clone deck, so maybe it makes it like a 2 and it's changeling. Maybe there's something cool in like your commander brawl style formats, something there. So we'll get like a 2 out of 5. Next is Run Ashore. For 4 and 2 blue, you have an instant. We can choose one or both. The owner of target non-land permanent puts it on top or bottom of its library, and the second effect is return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Well, 6 mana. It's 6 mana at instant speed, which is better. So you can put something on a deck. You can put something back in a deck, top or bottom, and or bounce something to its hand. It's okay. It's not great, but I can see it being a good like draft card. Historic, I don't see this card ever seeing play, other than like your Planeswalker's first deck. So yeah, like 1 out of 5. It's a teaching tool, and maybe a good like get rid of blockers for your opponent during draft kind of thing. 1 out of 5. Next is Tigrid Shadow. 3 and 2 black for an instant, where each player sacrifices 2 creatures, and you can foretell it for 4. Again, where foretelling is before you can pay 2 mana and exile the card in question face down in your exile, so it's like pretty much safe from like hand hate or like targeted or like weird sort of your protect from your thought seizes, your Pithing Needle style effects. Not Pithing Needle. What is the name of that card? That Ravnica get rid of all the copies of your card deck thing. Those effects, like a particular, so like. Anywho, well, yeah, it basically lets you tuck something away in exile for future use if you pay 2, and then you whenever you could play the card normally, you can play it for its foretell cost. A 5 mana each player at instant speed sacks 2 creatures is okay. I would normally give this like a 1 out of 5 for like a teaching tool card. It's fine. But because it might go in like existing like black-based sacrifice decks or Rakdos-based sacrifice decks, it might go up to like a shaky 2 out of 5 or 2 stars. Let's see. Next is Bloodsky Berserker. Let's see, 1 and a black for a 1/1 human berserker. Oh, this weird sub-theme. 1 and a black for human berserker 1/1. Whenever you cast your second spell, each turn, put 2 1/1 counters on Bloodsky Berserker, and then it gains menace until the end of the turn. If some sort of General Kudro-based human deck, aggro deck starts popping off, maybe you can get it to work, as it can like stay relevant throughout the game, but boy does it die to a lot, and very easy. The menace makes it alright, so it's got a couple relevant creature types, and like a ability that I think will not be that useful, as I'm seeing more Azorius control in best of 3 anecdotally over the last week or so. So I don't know if you'll be able to actually cast that second spell with your Rule of Law and Archon of Emeria style effects. But if you take the thing as a whole, it's like a good 2 out of 5. It's not bad. It'll probably see fringe play, especially budget play. Oh good, direct competitor next. Death Knell Berserker. 1 in a black for a 2/2 Elf Berserker. When it dies, if its power was 3 or greater, make a 2/2 black zombie berserker. Oh, that's awful. This is a 1 out of 5. This is a teaching tool card. Like, it'll go in like a, you know, good precon, or like, you know, a good precon or teaching deck for elves or berserkers. But you have to invest so much into it. It's a bear when it comes out, which I guess is okay at the end of the day. Again, good teaching tool material. But then you have to play the card itself. So that's 1 card. You then have to play another card that, whether permanent or temporary, gives it the 3 power threshold. So you're already at 2 cards. So, and then it takes two cards to, when it dies, get a 2/2 black zombie berserker. No, it's like a 1 out of 5. It's a teaching tool. 1 star. Next. Oh yeah, these Rune things. These have potential to be really interesting. Rune of Flight. 1 in a blue. Enchantment or Rune. Enchant permanent. Alright. When Rune of Flight enters the battlefield, draws a card. So cantrips. That's good. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it has flying. Cool, cool. As long as enchanted permanent is an equipment, it has equipped creature has flying. I think this is actually like a good 3 out of 5. If you have some sort of Azorius style enchanter build, which already kind of exists floating around, this will more than likely go in that deck as like basically a superior copy of that Angelic Flight card from, I think, one of a core set or 2 ago. So yeah, like 3 out of 5. Good synergy, replaces itself, so it can enchant anything. If you just need it for the card draw and any sort of enchantress effects, you can stick the sumbitch on a land if you want. So yeah, like a good 3 out of 5. Rune of Flight. Open the Omen Pass. Ah, good Tybalt art. Yeah. See, open the Omen Pass. Sorry, my brain was fucking that name up. 2 in a red for an instant to choose 1. Add 2 mana of any color, any 1 color, and 2 mana of any other color. Spend this mana only to cast creature or enchantment spells. So it's can be a ritual for 3 mana, instant speed, or 3 mana, give your attacking creatures a toughness to the end of the turn, or creature you control 1 power till the end of the turn. Sorry. Free mana and rituals are actually kind of scary, so I'm gonna give this like a flimsy 2. There's something here. Hell, in my little, spoiler, it might be the next video, in my little hollow Arclight deck, this might actually be kind of good to be able to net mana and add to your storm counter. So yeah, we'll give it like a 2 out of 5. I can see a couple of decks where this would go into play. You would almost never use it for the creature effect. That's just something you happen to have, but it's not what you put it in the deck for, so it's just gravy. So yeah, like a good solid 2. I imagine in certain, again, like my Arclight Hollow 1 style decks, it'd be pretty damn good, but other than that, you'd be struggling potentially. But who knows? I could be wrong. This is like a, yeah, 2 out of 5 with like a potential to be like a 3. Next, Dogged Pursuit. Ah, nice Kai art. 3 in a red for an enchantment at the beginning of your instep. Each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Instep is nice, actually. I want to play some sort of like Orzhov Enchantress-y style deck. This is like a 2 out of 5. It's a good enough card. It can help against the like aggro. You beat down your decks in a black deck. Some enchantment support in the colors. Yeah, like 2 out of 5. Well, it's like a shaky 2 out of 5. This is normally a teaching tool, but I could see this potentially being very useful. So yeah, 2 out of 5. Let's see, Cordur Doomscourge. 2 and a black and a red for a 4/3 legendary demon berserker. When Cordur enters the battlefield until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. Okay, so it like forces like in both in Commander and Historic, forces the end of like board stall, which is nice. Whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, and then it goes to you. This in Commander, I see this card being very good. As a Commander, I can see some real like politically fun stuff on paper happening. Historic, however, some relevant creature types, kind of being able to clear out or to force the end of like board stall is good. The alt art over here looks very goddamn cool. I'll give this like, man, that attacking creature dies thing. We'll give it like a 2 out of 5. Something here. It's not a bad card at all, really. It's only bad if like there's very little aggro in the format. But other than that, I think this card will see a home. Let's see. Fall of the Imposter is a saga for 1, a green, and a white. First 2 chapters put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature. And third chapter is exile a creature with the greatest power among creatures target opponent controls. Okay, so it's a saga in Selesnya, and Selesnya can also do an enchant. Basically, any base white and some other color can do Enchantress builds, and Selesnya's no exception. So it likes the saga, so that's good. The 1/1 counter synergy is also existent in Selesnya. At worst, it's just, you know, buff up your dudes a little bit, and then you can, in theory, on turn, assuming you get this on turn 3, turn 6, you exile an opponent's thing, opponent's really big thing, which is often their best thing. I might actually give this one a 3 out of 5. It supports enough existing architecture, and its ceiling is, even if you don't have any creatures, it's just a 3 mana, like, eventually suspend for, exile a big creature on their board that's suspended for a couple of turns. So we'll give it a 3 out of 5. On to the next one. On to the next. Next is Boreal Outrider. 2 and a green for a Snow Elf Warrior. It's 3/2. Whenever you cast a spell, if snow of any of that spell's colors was spent to cast it, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter. Okay, so Elf and Warrior are some somewhat relevant creature types, but that's just a little extra, and it's not really the reason you would run this card, other than budget constraints in either. Okay, so whenever you cast a creature spell, if any of the mana spent to cast it was snow mana, then that creature enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it. We'll give it like a 2 out of 5. It's an okay creature, really, all things considered. The strength of this will depend on the strength and popularity of snow decks. I don't think you'd ever really run it in a traditional elf deck, or even a traditional warrior deck, unless you're going really heavy snow creatures. Maybe if some sort of Selesnya snow counter, snow +1/+1 counter style deck shows up along with cards like the Fall of the Imposter from earlier. Maybe it'll see some play, but it's going to be very niche and narrow, and you'll probably only see it 1 in every 20-25 games. So like 2 out of 5, but it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Next, raise the Draugr. 1 and a black for an instant. Choose 1. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or return 2 target creature cards that share a creature type from your graveyard to your hand. This is actually not that bad. It's okay. These returning creatures to your hand thing see some play. Kind of limited though. It's a very, very good teaching tool and kind of shows what black is good at, as well as giving tribal support. Because you can get 2 creatures back for 1, and it's effectively a 2-mana draw, air quote, draw 2, but you're drawing from your graveyard, you might give this like a 2 out of 5. This is normally more of a teaching tool, but I think it's like just good enough in your black-based tribal decks. You might actually run this maybe, but I'm not like sold on it. It's 2 out of 5 for Raise the Draugr. Oh good, this totally not Thor copyright infringement. Tauros, God of Fury. 2 and 2 red for a legendary god that's 5/4. When a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, Tauros takes the extra damage and can hit any other permanent with it. That's okay. It's not bad. It's pretty okay. Requires burn to be like good in the format, and it just isn't the greatest, honestly. And because Wizards I wish they would like trust us with the existence of Lightning Bolt in the format, but they won't. If there is a red burn deck, it might show up, but man, I don't know if you would ever run it over that Torbjorn red elf dude. Let's just say that the god half is competing. It might work in burn decks. It's like a 2 out of 5, but it has a lot of competition it's competing with. So 2 out of 5 on the guard card. Part of it. On the reverse side is Tauros Hammer. 1 in a red for a legendary artifact that's an equipment. Equipped creature has 1 in a red. Tap to unattach Tauros Hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target. Then you return the hammer to its owner's hand. The equipped creature gets +3 and +3/+0 as long as it's legendary. Okay, so I could see if you have both of these, both the hammer and the god, it might be there's better synergies here, which appears to be how all these dual-sided dual-faced god cards go, where that each of the creatures are a little kind of underpowered or like are not the greatest because they're stapled to 1 card, and that's the balance point. The hammer, there's like a Boros Enchantress or equipment build, not Enchantress. It might work. Maybe you would see some play in like burn decks, maybe, but I feel like the hammer and the god are like trying to do 2 different things on a card. So maybe it might see play, maybe. I mean, it's good that if you own the hammer and the, by owning the hammer and the god on the same card, it gives you access to like top-end threat in 2 different decks. And there is a little bit of synergy between the 2 of them if you have both out, because you can have both out. It's like a 2 out of 5. It might be great, but I wouldn't hold out for it, though I might eat my words. Torolf and his hammer, 2 out of 5. Next card. Oh, this shit show of a card. Divine Gambit. 2 white for a sorcery. Exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment and opponent controls. That player may put a permanent card from their hand onto the battlefield. This card is bad. It's really, really bad. There are it's not even like if it was like a common and it was like very, very budget friendly, like removal, I mean, maybe I could see it happening, but God, there's no reason to. It's just a bad card. Don't run it. I can personally see no reason to run it. I wouldn't even put these things in a teaching tool deck, because white already doesn't get a lot of love, and if you're, player who's playing inside their first 10 games, in Historic, decided to try out white as their color, and then they play a Divine Gambit on like a Thalia or something, or even in a Johnny's Pride Mate, and they like pull out something stupid like an Ulamog, they're gonna like feel real bad, and you're gonna have a problem like retaining players. That card is, I'm gonna rarely give it like a 0 out of 5. I don't really do that all that often. It's kind of breaking what we're wanting here, but I believe that card is that bad. There's no reason to ever run this card. It's so bad. Next is Tormentor's Helm, a 1 red artifact equipment, where the equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever the equipped creature becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to defending player. I'm gonna give this a shaky 2. This is a good, like, if there's like a pre-con teaching deck that's like some Boros equipment deck, this is a pretty good one to show like what equipment can do and how they work. The artwork looks pretty cool, but that's not really what we're talking about here. That's a separate thing. The only reason why I'm giving it a 2 and not a 1 like I would a normal teaching tool is that I think there is a kind of budget-friendly Boros equipment build that has potential to be pretty good. But it's a shaky 2. So like we'll give it like a shaky 2 out of 5. Next is Varkell. We'll call him Tyvar. Varkell is 2 and 2 green for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. He has a passive ability, and this is actually a balanced passive ability, where elves you control had tapped to add a black. So it would seem, as far as I can tell from the cards so far, that Golgari is getting, the black and green color pie part of Kaldheim is getting elf support, which is nice. I love me some good tribal cards. And you might get some use out of that, but that's just gravy. His uptick for +1 loyalty is put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target elf. You untap it, and it gains Death Touch until the end of the turn. So you can, hell, if nothing else, get 2 mana uses out of elf in question. The 1/1 counter on it is nice. The Death Touch can be relevant against creature types. Not bad. For a 0 loyalty ability, you can use to make a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Not bad. And his ultimate at -6 is you get an emblem with whenever you cast an elf, it gains haste until the end of the turn, and you draw 2 cards. This is a pretty good planeswalker, honestly. I'm going to give this like a 3 out of 5. Like a good, solid 3 out of 5. It's a pretty strong planeswalker, by all accounts, but I don't think it's going to be broken. It's a planeswalker that only sees play in elves, which is a buttload of answers for it in the format, but it also has good support. Lots of good interplay. He's a 4-mana walker who doesn't like end the game when you play him. He has an ult that basically does win the game and supports, again, the elf synergy. Good solid 3 to 5. Varkell. If I get around, when I get around to making a Golgari Elves deck, he'll probably be in there, provided I get him. Let's see, Varkell, 3 to 5. Ah, yes. Next is Timults Trickery. The Chaos Warp for spells. Oh, this card is, by the way, oh god. Anyway, we'll talk about it in a second. Timults Trickery, 1 in a red for an instant. Counter target spell, choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Each controller mills that many cards, then exiles from the top of their library, or exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card with a different name than the countered spell. They may cast that spell or that card without putting its mana cost. They put the exiled cards in the bottom in a random order. people in old and like your moderns and stuff and legacies are complaining this is a little broken, and it probably is. But I don't see this being. It'll be fun, but it will be good. I'm not convinced. But again, we'll go 2 out of 5 because I see the potential for it to be fun. And really, if you're in a mono red deck and you don't have access to like some sort of sweeper protection, I can see you maybe running a copy or 2 in the sideboard to protect in your red deck wins against the again like 30 rats there are in the format. So like a 2 out of 5. Fringe corner case applications, and it could be a fun like RNG kind of deck. So yeah, 2 out of 5. Next is Cordur's Vicious Return. Is a saga for 2 of black and red. First chapter, you may sack a creature. When you do, this card deals 3 damage to any target. Alright. 2 is each player discards a card, which is alright. Third and final chapter is return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a 1/1 counter on it. It gains haste until the end of the next step. I'm going to give this a shaky 3. On its own, it's not an awful card. It does require existing creatures for it to work, both in the battlefield when you play it, and to have in your yard, in your graveyard to make use of the final chapter. It's correctly balanced in making you both discard a card. So normally this would put it like in 2 category, in a 2 out of 5 stars, or whatever you want to call it. But because your Rakdos-based sacrifice decks already exist and are more common than I'd like, I think this will see like good play in those decks, but probably not much of anywhere else. So yeah, like normally a 2 out of 10, but the fringe applications are a deck that's already pretty goddamn strong, so it bumps up to a 3. But the 3 might be a little shaky. Next is Egon God of Winter. This one is a 3, or he's 2 and a green for a legendary snow creature god. That's 3/3. Whenever Jorn attacks, untap each other snow permanent you control. So like when you attack, it can say double up mana if you really want it to, or get like double use out of your land or snow permanents. In this case, lands in my example. Well, that's not bad for 3 mana 3/3 that can potentially net you some mana. And the reverse is Cauldron, the Rime Staff. 1 a blue and a black for a legendary snow artifact. And you can tap it to play target snow permanent card from. You may play target snow permanent card from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped. In the last few years of Magic, an effect like Jorn that lets you kind of net mana are usually pretty good. So like that's like a 3. I'll give that. Jorn gets a 3. The Cauldron, depending on how popular snow will be, it could be like a 2. Actually, well, depending on how strong snow ends up being, this could be very, very good. So we'll probably give the whole card, both Jorn and Cauldron, the Rime Staff, like a 3 out of 5. I see some potential for some crazy stuff to happen in my head, but not from the cards in question. So 3 out of 5. Moving on. Roots of Wisdom, 1 and a green for a sorcery. You mill 3 cards, then return a basic land or an elf card from your graveyard to your hand. If you can't, i.e. if you miss, you just draw a card. I actually see this card being kind of good. It's a very, very good teaching tool. Kind of shows that rebirth part of green and specifically Golgari, which is good. Get you a land if you need to like not miss one, so you can maybe keep 2 landers you might not normally do. Elf card recursion if you happen to like get rid of a card you really need, and at worst it cantrips and you can draw and hopefully hit the thing you need. It's like a good solid like 2 out of 5. good teaching tool with, I see potential to do more, but that remains to be seen. Roots of Wisdom, 2 out of 5. Axguard Cavalry is 1 and a red for a 2/2 Dwarf Berserker, so he's a bear, where you can tap and target creature gains haste until end of the turn. These effects are okay. They never really see a whole lot of like high-end constructed play, but these are very good teaching tools, and maybe the creature types might make some sort of difference, though I wouldn't bet on it. Seeing how dwarfs and berserkers are already pretty low to the ground, so giving them haste is like not necessarily what you want to do. Axguard Cavalry, like a 1 out of 5, but it's a good one. Next is Wither Crown, 1 in the black for enchantment and aura where you enchant a creature. Enchanted creature has base power of 0 and has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life unless you sacrifice this creature. It's a good like polymorph effect, but other than like maybe in some fringe, maybe some sort of fringe like Doom Foretold-y, maybe, or Orzhov Enchantress-y style thing. It's a good teaching tool, and maybe Popper will like it, who knows. But Wither Crown, like a 1 out of 5, it's fine. Next is Harald, the King of the Skimfar, 1, a black and a green for a legendary elf warrior with menace, who is a 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a elf, a warrior, or a Tyvar card, i.e. that Planeswalker we saw earlier. Put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I mean, it's not bad. Some elf or warrior support, giving them card draw where they might not necessarily have before, is nice. Menace is okay, as it just needs some sort of evasion for it to be good. Potentially tutoring for your Tyvar drop on turn 4 is nice. We're going to give this a 3 out of 5. It's a good creature for the cost. It has evasion, so that even after you draw a card with it, or drawn a card with it, you can actually maybe make use of the body. The fact that it supports, it basically gives one some card draw, but more importantly, card draw in two tribes that would normally kind of struggle for card draw is nice. And the Tyvar card, granted, is more of an elf thing, so elves are getting a lot of love. Warriors happen to get some love out of it. So, because it ticks a lot of boxes, it doesn't necessarily do any one thing amazingly, but it does enough things okay. Good 3 out of 5. Next is Harald Unites the Elves. 2, a black and a green. For a saga. Let's see. First chapter, you mill 3 cards. You would put an elf or a Tyvar card from your graveyard onto the battlefield, which is good. Gives you another hit for potential Tyvars or elves, and maybe recurs them, which is good. Second counter is put second chapter, I think they're called, is put a 1/1 counter on each elf you control, which is nice. Elves still, pretty much by their nature, kind of want to go wide. Although Kaldheim elves seem like you want to get a mix of like beefy dudes and going wide, so you want like a good mix of the two, which is good. The final chapter is whenever an elf you control attacks, target opponent and a creature it controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn. That's actually potentially really good if I understand how that works, in that it will trigger for each individual elf that attacks. So for every one creature gets shrunk by 1 till the end of the turn, which will can really honestly help to kind of clear up like a big blocker or even small blockers. Like, it's a good elf. It's a good like elf support card. It basically gives you more or less card draw, sort of, kind of pumps your dudes, and then can help you clear through boards or make like better trades if you need to. Harald, much like Herald and Unites the Elves, much like Herald himself, will get a good 3 out of 5. It does a lot of things pretty good. Next is Egon, God of Death. 2 and a black for a 6/6 legendary god with Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile 2 cards from your graveyard. If you can't, sack Egon and draw a card. The backside is, well, we'll get to Throne of Death in a second. I'm not a big fan of Egon. I think he's just like the only reason you run him is because he comes attached with the Throne of Death. But on his own, if it was like just the front-facing card, I have never run an Egon over like a Rotting Regisaur. I mean, it is nice that unlike Rotting Regisaur, you have to get rid of things in your yard. So maybe after, they've already served their purpose, you can make something happen. But if you play it on curve and nothing's in your yard, then you've just paid 3 mana to like have a blocker for a turn, and then the blocker dies and you draw a card. I'm not totally really on board. The Death Touch is nice, but while I understand the thematics of having Death Touch on the God of Death, and you get, Wizards get some love for that, practically a 6/6 doesn't really need Death Touch because he's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with most creatures anyway. Now, the reason why you run him is the Throne of Death attached to him. For 1 black at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card, which is nice to say fill your yard for cards like Egon. And then you can tap for 2 and a black, and you can tap the Throne, exile a creature card from your graveyard, draw a card. Any deck, okay, you only ever play the Throne of Death, and you sometimes at the late game might be able to make use of Egon. I don't see much in the way of self-mill going, because we're not getting any Narc Amoeba style cards anytime soon. The mill is nice if you can make use of it, but Egon and his Throne are, for me, like a 2 out of 5. I see what they're going for, and thematically you nailed it. I just don't think the card is very good. So yeah, 2 out of 5 for Egon and his Throne. Next, Feed the Serpent is 2 and 2 black for instant exile target creature or planeswalker. That's just good removal. It's fine. I mean, is there better in the format? Yes, but as uncommon, it's pretty goddamn good. It is a non-rare version of Vraska's Contempt where you don't gain life. It's a great budget alternative. It's a good card. You're teaching, and if the exile clause might be important, the bits of graveyards matter kind of thing going on in Kaldheim. So we'll give it like a 2 out of 5. There's enough use for the exile that what would normally be a 1 out of 5 teaching tool might get, we'll get a loose bump up to a 2 out of 5. Next is Elder Fang Disciple. 1 and a black for a 1/1 elf creature, an elf cleric. Where it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. The elf and the cleric are creature types it's okay. It's like a burglar rat with some potential tribal synergies just because it is a member of those 2 tribes. But I'm judging this as like the rat. I don't think it'll really see play outside of teaching decks. So, like, as a teaching tool, anyhow. So, we'll go, like, 1 and a 5. Code Spell Cleric. A 1 mana, 1/1 human cleric with vigilance. When Code Spell Cleric enters the battlefield, if it was the second spell you've cast this turn, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Good teaching card, again, like the Elder Fang, but I don't see that second spell archetype really, becoming something big. And the human and the clerics, there's so much better human and clerics, even at like lower rarities, you would rarely choose to run it, unless you just didn't have any cards. But again, it's a 1 out of 5. It's a teaching tool, and it's okay, I guess, for what it does, but still, it's iffy at best. Raider's Card is next, a 3 mana artifact vehicle that's 4/4. When it attacks, you can put the top card of your library. If it's a land, you can put it onto the battlefield tapped. It takes 3 to crew. It's a 3 mana 4/4 crew 3 vehicle that when you attack, you can potentially like get some incremental value and bits of ramp here and there. Still gonna call it like a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching tool, and I know there is some vehicle support sort of kind of here, but I don't think it's good enough to really see a lot of play, even with like the giant ox here. Yeah, it's like a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching tool, good to show off like how vehicles work to people. It's a good like player's first vehicle, but other than that, you don't really choose to run it. Next is Giant Ox, 1 and a white for a 06 Ox, where Giant Ox crews vehicles using its toughness rather than its power. This is okay as a blocker. It's pretty big and pretty chunky, but yeah, the reason why you run it is just because, well, I mean, you might run it in some sort of toughness matters style deck, but you use it to, like, crew vehicles. Not to mention the big plow that we'll see in a little bit that I saw in normal spoiler season. We'll actually call this like we'll call this like a 2 out of 5, but it's shaky. Its power, its strength will likely rely on if vehicles see a lot of play. I mean, you might also find some use in the occasional like toughness matter style decks, and I guess in Commander, if you what's that Animal Sanctuary land? I believe one of his types is an ox. I might be wrong. So it's like a very loose 2 out of 5 that will can very easily slip into a 1. Next is Mammoth Growth, 2 and a green for an instant, where a target creature gets +4/+4 until the end of the turn, and you can foretell it for 1 green. It's a good teaching spell, but like, it's just not really any reason to run it. Like, I mean, giant growths in the format, and you can just always have it for 1 green. Then it's a teaching card. It's fine. The art looks really, really cool, but that's not really what these again are about. So yeah, like 1 out of 5. It's a teaching card. It's fine. Does a good job of explaining why foretell can be kind of good and explaining the mechanic, but when compared to other green pump spells, there are I think better versions to use, and even then you don't use green pump spells all that often in the format. Next is Demon Bolt, 3 and a red for an instant, where Demon Bolt deals 4 damage to target creature or walker, and you can foretell it for 1. It's again, much like the Gigantic Growth, it's just like a red version of that. Like, it's okay removal. I imagine it's actually, again, kind of like the Mammoth Growth in question. Both of these cards are probably really good in, like, limited or in draft formats, whatever. In that they are just instant mana, instant speed, like, combat tricks and removal. But in, like, constructed play, other than like a teaching tool, I don't think you'd ever really run this, unless the foretell part maybe is of relevance, but I don't think it will be. Next is Crush the Weak, 2 and a red for a sorcery. Crush the Weak deals 2 damage to each creature. If a creature dealt damage this way, this would die this turn, exile it instead. And you can foretell it for 1 red. This is actually kind of good as a budget sweeper in red, though I think you already have that one from like Pyroclasm style effect in red. There are other like red sweepers, but this is honestly a pretty good one for like budget formats. So I think we'll not budget formats. It's a good budget card in this format is what I meant to say, pardon. So we'll actually give this like a 2 out of 5. It's pretty useful, and the exile clause can be very relevant, and it's At worst, a 3 mana 2 sweeper that exiles stuff when it dies. And if you need to bank it, you can do it for 1 mana, which is pretty good. So yeah, like a good 2 out of 5. Run Amok. Reprint, actually, I believe. 1 in a red for an instant. Target attacking creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until the end of the turn. I mean, it's not bad. It's fine. I know from the little bits of drafting I do once in a blue moon, that like it's a good combat trick. It can help you win games and close out stuff, but it's like a teaching tool, honestly. Like, it's a 1 out of 5, but it's a good solid 1 out of 5. Great for teaching people to stack and stuff, but I don't think it'll see much play once you can replace it. I imagine you will. So like a good 1 out of 5 teaching tool for Run Amok. Ooh, pardon. Next is Burning Rune Demon. Oh Jesus, goddamn paragraph. Okay, Burning Rune Demon is 4 and 2 black for a 6/6 Demon Berserker with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your name for exactly 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon, so you can't find itself, that have different names. So search your card for exactly 2 different named cards that aren't itself. If you do, reveal those cards. An opponent chooses one of them, put the chosen card into your grave. Wait, what? Oh, sorry, my little babby bits of dyslexia kicked in. Put the chosen card into your hand and the other into your graveyard. It's not bad. Like, it's got some good, like, tribal support, so there is that. Other than that, I mean, it is a 6 mana 6/6 flyer, so like it'll end the game quick. And the fact that you can tutor for 2 like cards to where you can at least kind of control the outcome of what they have to pick from. Of course, you can't choose what they'll pick, but you can choose what they'll pick from. You can't choose exactly what they pick. This might be like a 2-star. Maybe it might bust out into 3, but I'd be very surprised. It might do it in combo decks, but that's about it. But there are better ways to get tutors in the format for combo decks. So like a 2 out of 5. It might, with maybe some potential to like just barely like squeeze into a 3, depending on how the meta plays out. Next is Starnheim Unleashed. 2 and 2 white for a sorcery. Create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. If this spell was foretold, create X of those instead. At worst, I believe it's a 1 mana cheaper Sarah Angel with warrior creature type, which is important. If you foretell it, you can get a board of them, which is, I guess, nice to just kind of sit on. Angels have some potential I think angels have more potential than the warriors part. But it's a nice, like, card you can play that will, like, summon a lot of dudes and probably end the game the following turn. Hell, Azorius Control might run this alongside your, like, Shark Typhoons as both a non-creature for the Shark Typhoon as well as just summoning a fucking buttload of dudes. So it can see some play in Angel tribal decks, maybe Warrior, though that one's a little iffy. And maybe some Azorius Control. It could be a good on-curve just to play a dude. Or it could be a foretell to summon a whole goddamn board. And we'll give it like a 3 out of 5. I see some potential for that. Yeah, Starnheim Unleashed, 3 out of 5. Next is Dual Strike, 2 red for an instant. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 4 or less, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. And you can foretell it for 1. It's nice. These effects are fun. They're not terribly good, except for, like, you know, that Snapcaster, or that that Neoform Snapcastery style deck. Like, very rarely these cards will become kind of useful, but they're like like a 1 out of 5. It's like a good teaching tool. I don't see it seeing a whole lot of play. Because hell, even that, again, that Neoform Chain deck doesn't see play anymore. Next, Bound in Gold. That is some cool looking fucking art. That's really cool, actually. Anywho, Bound in Gold is 2 and a white for enchanting an enchantment aura where you enchant a permanent, which is nice. Enchanted permanent can't attack, block, or crew vehicles, and activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. It's fine. It's a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching tool, so you understand and you know how white's removal works. White doesn't really kill things; it locks them up, and it's a good removal in limited. But I don't think you would really see a whole lot any play really in Bound in Gold. So yeah, it's a 1 out of 5 teaching tool. Again, it does its job fine. So, yeah. Next is Basalt Ravager, 3 and a red for a 4/2 giant wizard. When Basalt Ravager enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to any target. X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. It's as a person who like loves the giant theme and already loves wizards, I'm gonna give this a really shaky 2 out of 5. It's one of those, if you're running one of either a giant deck or a wizard deck, then you'll probably run the Basalt Ravager, but even then, it's never really that good. The vast majority of the time, this is a teaching tool. But my bias and love for the giant and the wizard, like, 2 synergies for tribes, is what makes this like a very shaky 2 out of 5. Next is Frostspire Arcanist. Is 4 and a blue for a 2/5 giant wizard, where this spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a giant or a wizard. Alright. So if you control a giant or a wizard, then it's what? 4 mana 2/5? Okay. When Frostspire Arcanist enters the battlefield, search your library for an instant or sorcery card with the same name as a card in your graveyard. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. Again, this is like... Okay, another shaky 2 out of 5. It's a good teaching tool. And if your first deck is some giant or wizard synergy deck, it's not the worst. But much like the Basalt Ravager, they're just kind of big, dirtly dudes that they don't have any sort of evasion. But they might work. But the reason why I get to 2 is because the giant and wizard 2 tribes are stuff that I think is fun, personally. Probably it'll be a 1 out of 5. But we'll say it 2 out of 5. The next is Weathered Runestone. 2 mana for an artifact. Non-land permanents in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. This is fine. It's 2 mana, like a budget alternative to like a Grafdigger's Cage, more or less. Very good, and if you don't want to waste the rare wild cards on a Grafdigger's Cage in Historic, don't be afraid to get like a Weathered Runestone. You'll be alright. So, like a 2 out of 5. It's fine. It's good. Budget alternative. Isn't going to set the world on fire because it's sideboard hate. Dread Rider is 5 and a black for a 3/7 Spirit Knight, where you can pay 1 and a black and tap this card to exile a creature card from your graveyard. Target opponent loses 3 life. I can see this being good reach and limited, but it won't see play in Spirit or Knight Tribal. It doesn't need a 6. Neither of those decks need or want a 6-drop. This is a teaching tool or like a way in limited formats to finish the game. So yeah, like a 1 out of 5 all day long. Next is Pilfering Hawk. Dude, that's gorgeous goddamn art. I love the art of this fucking plane. Anywho, again, not the point where we're here. Pilfering Hawk is a 1 and a blue for a snow bird, or snow creature bird. That's a 1/2, and has flying. And you can pay 1 snow and tap the card to draw and then discard. Again, if you want to run some Animal Sanctuary commander deck and that one Azorius old school land that you can sack a bird and draw a card is nice, and the snow part is good for, like, you know, like getting some use out of it to, like, draw and discard. Unless you're running like some sort of commandery bird tribal thing, this is a good teaching card. It's 1 out of 5. It's fine. Not a lot of bells and whistles, but it does a good job of explaining certain cards, like the mechanics of the set. It's got very pretty art, which is like something that, as a person who's tried to get other people into the game, the art being so goddamn gorgeous throughout the whole game, really, but especially in a card like Pilfering Hawk, can really help to pull people in. And it's not a terribly complex card, but it is representative of the set it comes from. It's like everything a 1 out of 5 should be. It is like the perfect version of a good teaching card. Next is Smashing Success. 3 in a red for an instant. Destroy a target artifact or land. If an artifact is destroyed this way, create a treasure token. I'm a fan of some good... it's actually pretty good land hate and artifact hate against that. Land hate in the form of the God Tree style effects at instant speed, which is very, very nice. And you can destroy artifacts like your opposing, you know, cages or weathered Graph Digger's cages, or you're opposing weathered runestones. If you make an artifact, also you go up a treasure token, which has like some support in the set. I'll give this like a 2 out of 5, actually. I can see some, like, depending on how the meta goes, seeing some sideboard play. And it's a very good teaching tool for this set. Next is Shepherd of the Cosmos, which is 4 and 2 white for an Angel Warrior. Pardon? Let's see. Shepherd of the Cosmos, 4 and 2 white for a 3/3 Angel Warrior with flying. When it enters the battlefield, return target permanent card with CMC 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and you can foretell it for 4. What's that Tishar card from Dominaria? There is some weird, probably like really fringe corner case sorry, I thought I heard a noise. Pardon the silence there for a second. But cards like Shepherd of the Cosmos and I believe Teshar that can, whenever it enters the battlefield or whatever the circumstance might be, can like bring cheap things back, is usually asking for some sort of combo player to like mess with it, and I'm not really a combo player. But I'll give this like a 2 out of 5 because even I see the writing on the wall here that there's some sort of weird combo potential in the format in Shepherd of the Cosmos. Next is Infernal Pet. Oh my god, that's messed up. I love the art on that too. Goddamn. Infernal Pet is 2 and a black for a 2/2 imp, and whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Infernal Pet, and it gains flying until the end of the turn. Dude, that's fucked up. It's like eating like fairies or something. That's so cool. That's black as fuck though. That's really cool. This is a draft card all day long, or a teaching tool. I don't think it'll really see play, but extra style points for some goddamn killer art. Pardon. I really do apologize. I'm not used to talking this long, so it starts to fray at the edges a little bit. Next is Breakneck Berserker. 2 and a red for a 3/2 dwarf berserker with haste. It's like a teaching tool. It's fine. Like a 3 mana 3x with haste. It's a good teaching tool. Maybe some tribal support. Will likely mean that it'll see play in decks like that kind of care about those two, either dwarfs or berserkers. I could see that being like a nice inclusion into that pre-con deck for teaching tools. Maybe there's some like fringe format like usability maybe in like a poppery aggro deck, but I don't really know much about popper, though I'd love to learn more. But yeah, Breakneck Berserker, again, 1 out of 5. Good teaching tool. Maybe some fringe benefits in very like specific examples. Next is Dusk Wielder, a 1 mana elf berserker with one. That's a elf berserker that is 1/2 and has boast. Pardon about that. We can pay 1 and target opponent loses a life and you gain a life. This is, I mean, maybe in some like, it's a teaching tool first off of, like, easily you can see that, and it's a good teaching tool. It's an okay statted thing. It's good for collections in that they only take, like, you know, it's an uncommon. It's cheap to get, both in paper, as evidenced by the 25 cents cost. The boast ability can be useful to help fight on boards. Maybe like a 2 out of 5, but it's shaky. Just because it's like a budget elf and berserker, whose boast ability can help you like sort of race more effectively. So like a shaky 2 out of 5. Next is King Harold's Revenge. 2 and a green for a sorcery. Until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control and gains trample. It must be blocked this turn if able. It's a good, like, it's a great teaching tool. King Harold being one of the elf cards, lords, you know, leaders of the elves, whatever, in Kaldheim. It does a good job of like kind of supporting what his people, the elves, want to do, which is go wide. And King Harold's allows you to basically make one dude really, really big and force everyone to focus on that creature in question. So it's like a 1 out of 5. Good teaching tool. Good, probably okay like game closer for green and limited environments. But yeah, 1 out of 5, King Harold's Revenge. On to the next card. Next is Jespera Sentinel, a 1 mana 1/2 elf rogue with reach, and you can tap to tap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. Because you don't play this in rogues. Rogues is, you don't, the rogue part is extra, but being able to like also like tap other creatures and can be potentially useful depending on a creature by creature basis. Being able to like make use of a creature card with summoning sickness to make a mana is nice. And it's the elf. It does have reach, which is nothing to like throw away. We'll give it like Jespera Sentinel, kind of like the elf berserker from before, the Dusk Wielder, like a very shaky 2 out of 5. I think it, because it might see some play like in budget builds of decks, well, that's what pushes over the edge to a 2, but it might go terribly wrong. Next is Elderleaf Mentor. It is 3 and a green for a 3/2 elf warrior. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green elf creature token. So it's like a 4 mana 4/3 spread out over 2 bodies. This is I mean, it's okay. It's fine. It's a good teaching card. Good, you know, like, yeah, good teaching card. If your elf precon or your warrior precon comes with it, it's okay. I would personally always choose to run maybe like a Dwynen's Elite or that Ren's Death Touch elf in Historic. And those are, I think, they're, neither one of those cards is more than an uncommon level rarity, but it's not a bad card. It's like 1 out of 5. It's a teaching card. Next is Avalanche Collar. Is a 1 and a blue for a snow human wizard that's 1/3, where you can pay 2 to make target snow land you control become a 4/4 elemental creature token with hexproof and haste. Hi, Carmel. Hi, baby girl. Where was I? Target snow land you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature token, or elemental creature with hexproof and haste until end of turn. Still a land. Okay, if you draw the nuts here and you play an Avalanche Collar on turn 2, that means turn 3 you're making one of your lands a 4/4 with hexproof and haste, so that is something. It's okay. Like a good teaching tool. Oop, sorry. Pardon. Avalanche Collar is like a 1 out of 5. It's not a bad card. I mean, maybe if you like really care about having, you know, a bunch of snow permanents, in this case a snow creature, you might choose to play it, but outside of a good teaching tool, I'd be very surprised if it sees a lot of play. Next is Cyclone Summoner. 5 and 2 blue for a 7/7 giant wizard. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, i.e. if it wasn't foretold somehow, return all permanents to their owner's hands except giants, wizards, and lands. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so it's like a good way to, like, in some giant-y wizard deck to, like, clear the opposing board, to, like, make way for your big dudes to, like, you know, totally bonk people. It's like a 2 out of 5. It's like a good, like, first land. It's like a good, like, teaching tool, and it's like a good first rare. It's got some good tribal support here, in that, like, you'll need to clear the board eventually and hit with your dudes. Seeing how giants can be chumped out pretty easily. You don't really super want to run this in a wizard's deck, like a pure wizard deck. You just want to run this in more of a giant deck that happens to also contain some, like, supporting wizards. So, like, a good 2 out of 5. Next, Carfell Harbinger is 1 and a green, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 zombie wizard, where you can tap to add a blue, spend this mana only to foretell a card from your hand, or cast an instant or sorcery spell. This is like a 1 out of 5. The zombie and the wizard type will, I mean, it does have support, but it's not really, you wouldn't really want to play that in either of these decks, really. Or in either of the decks that care about zombies or wizards. And the tapping to add a blue mana is probably the only thing that saves it, to where if he ever sees play, it might, if foretell becomes really important. But I'm not convinced that it will. Of course, I could be wrong, and I might eat my words later. Carfell Harbinger, 1 out of 5. Good teaching tool. Next up is Squash for 4 and a red. This spell costs 3 less to cast if you control a giant. Hey, more giant synergy. We'll probably make a giant deck. I'm thinking like Jeskai Giants or something. Anywho, let's see. So if it costs 3 less so it'd be, at worst, it's a 5 mana, deals instant speed, deals 6 damage to target creature or planeswalker, which is okay. It's, but if you give 3, it's a 2 mana. If you have a giant, it costs 3 less. A 2 mana, dealing 6 damage to target creature or planeswalker. I could actually see in limited, this has got to be a fantastic removal spell. But again, for historic best of 3, you might see some play. It's a pretty good budget removal card if you don't have the rares for like a something else. Like, it's a good budget replacement card for like a wizard or a giant deck. Might see some genuine play, like a yeah, kind of a sketchy 2 out of 5. Again, I love giants as a creature type. I think they're interesting, so that is coloring my opinion a little bit. So Squash, like a shaky 2 out of 5. Oh, easy desert. Let's do it over here. Next will be Cinderheart Giant. 5 and 2 red for a 7/6 giant berserker with trample. When it dies, it deals 7 damage to target creature and opponent controls chosen at random. Hi, Carmel. Hi, baby girl. I love you. The Cinderheart Giant. Like a good, like, teaching tool. It's not bad. You might actually see some play in a giant deck as like a good budget. It's really more of like a teaching tool, honestly. Yeah, let's try and be honest. It's a good teaching tool. So it's a good 1 out of 5. Very solid. 1 out of 5. Good teaching tool. Next is Berg Strider. See, 4 and a blue for a 4/4 snow giant wizard. When it enters the battlefield, tap target artifact or creature an opponent controls. If a snow mana was spent to cast this spell, that permanent does not untap during its opponent's next unstap. This one I can say all day long is a good teaching spell, probably very good in limited, but it's like a 1 out of 5 in constructed best of 3. Next is, oh yeah, they're really cool. Another one of the reasons that if I can get my hands on a couple of these Battle of Frost and Fires, I'll try and make a giant deck for a future video. But anywho, Battle of Frost and Fire. Let's see, 3 a blue and a red for a saga. The first chapter is this card deals 4 damage to each non-giant creature and each planeswalker. That's good. A 5 mana. Where, what's the word? Basically, it sweeps. I'm trying to remember the actual name of the card. Yeah, a 5 mana Storm's Wrath that like hits non-giants, which is nice. Although if your opponent also controls giants, this could go like bad, but we'll see. Next is Scry 3. Set up some good draws, which is nice. But it's nothing to write home about. Chapter 3. Whenever you cast a spell with a CMC of 5 or greater this turn, draw 2 cards and discard a card. That's pretty good, honestly. And with the Scry 3 of the second chapter, you can pretty, fingers crossed, ensure that you actually like trigger this to get some card draw out of it. We'll do this like a 3 out of 5. It's not gonna like set the world on fire, and you never ever play it ever in a non-giant deck. But because giants are by and large pretty big creatures, i.e. 5 or greater, you can pretty reliably get the last saga to net you some good cards and chuck some dead ones. Battle of Frost and Fire, like a 3 out of 5. Good in like basically one deck, but you never play it outside of there. Pardon about that. Next is Draugr's Helm. 1 in a black for a artifact equipment. When Draugr's Helm enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 in a black. If you do, make a 2/2 black zombie berserker creature token, then attach the helm to it. And the equipped creature has +2/+2 and has menace. And equipped for 4. Okay. On its own, one, that art is so goddamn cool. It's gorgeous. But again, that's not what we're here for. The card itself. A Draugr, 2 mana, 4 to equip, but it gets 4/4, 2/2 in menace. Would honestly be like a pretty much a 1 out of 5 teaching card. The only saving grace that might make it like a sometimes play in zombies or berserkers deck is the ability to pay 3 mana to make a creature to attach to it. So it's like kind of like a what's that, like living weapon effect from old cards like Batterskull or whatever it's called. So we'll give Draugr Helm like a 2 out of 5, but boy, am I not confident in that 2. I believe that 2 could get chopped down to a 1 really fast. Next is Wings of the Cosmos. Let's see, 1 white for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+3 and gains flying until end of the turn. Untap it. It's just a good... I mean, yeah, it's a good teaching card. Again, somebody explaining to Magic and showing somebody playing Magic with him the first time, this card's a good teaching tool, but you never ever play it outside of that, like, ever. Maybe at most in, like, Feather the Redeemed, you might see it played, but I don't think you ever would. So yeah, 1 out of 5 might have, like, fringe applications in, like, literally one deck. Next is Funeral Longboat. Oh yeah, Wings of the Cosmos, I did say 1. Sorry. Hi, sweetheart. I know. Yep. I apologize. We're just going to have to go right on through that noise of my sweet brown sugar baby girl. Funeral Longboat is a 2-mana vehicle that is 3/3. I thought you were done, sweetheart. A 3/3 with vigilance and crew for 1. I mean, maybe if you run that. I don't know if in the Kaladesh remastered we got that like that vehicle hasty pilot dude, but maybe it's like really a teaching tool, but kind of like the Wings of the Cosmos. It's like a 1 out of 5 teaching tool that I could see maybe being relevant in like one deck, because there is a little teensy tiny baby bit of vehicle synergy, of like actual synergy, other than the vehicle themselves in the format. But again, it's like a 1 out of 5 the vast majority of the time you ever see it. Next. Here we go. Weird. It's got a lot to go. Or it feels like a lot. Next is Gold Vein Pick, a 2-mana artifact equipment where equipped creature gets +1/+1. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, make a treasure token. And you can equip for 1. I'm actually going to give this like a 2. I mean, it's a 2-mana, equip for 1, gets +1/+1 weapon. So if you're running some sort of equipment deck, it's fine, it'll go in. It can give you treasures, which can help you like mana fix, or if you miss land drops, if you connect. Maybe it might even see play in like mono blue tempo, so you can like tap out and still like make the treasure token to hold up like a some sort of like counterspell fudgery. But I'm thinking all the treasure synergies, not only in this set, but like in older sets, like some Revel of Riches or whatever that black card is, WinCon. All this treasure token might actually, all this treasure token like producers and synergy might actually see some play because of the Ixalan block stuff that supports it. So like a 2 out of 5 might, but again, 2 out of 5, but we'll see. See, next is Mystic Reflection. Is 1 and a blue for an instant. Choose target non-legendary creature. The next time 1 or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the creature. I mean, if there's some cool like if there's some cool like copying deck in Historic that might come to be, you might run this maybe, but I don't know, man. I mean, this might see play maybe sort of in like a mono blue tempo deck where you want some more Siren Storm Tamers or whatever to mess with your opponent, but even then I'd be very surprised. It's like, I can see this in Commander maybe doing something, but in Historic it's like a 1 out of 5, but it might be relevant in like a deck or two. Next is the Bears of Legiara. Is a saga for 1, a green, and a blue. First chapter is make a 2/2 shapeshifter with changeling. Second chapter is any number of shapeshifters creatures you control have base power and toughness 4/4. Alright, it's something, I guess. Choose up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Each creature you control with power 4 or greater. You control. Wait, hang on. What? Choose. Oh, it's just permanent. Sorry, the second saga. The second chapter of the saga is just a permanent. It doesn't say to the end of the turn. So that's better, actually. Okay. Choose up in the third chapter again. Choose up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Each creature with power 4 or greater you control deals damage equal to its power to this permanent. Did you give... Hang on. Did you just give targeted, like, damage removal to Simic? What the fuck, Wizards? I mean, I know this is like a turn 6 thing, so it's like, okay, I guess. First off, this is just good in the shapeshifter deck. It's just making some shapeshifters and making ones you have bigger permanently. Or, well, at least permanent as of... I think that's permanent. I hope it is. Anywho. Let me read that last chapter again. Choose up to one target creature or planeswalker. Each permanent with power 4 or greater the controller, owns, deals damage equal to his power. Okay, I don't think that... okay, I think this card... Okay, I might eat my words on this, but I'm actually going to call this a 4 out of 5. I try to, like 4 out of 5, and I'm scared it might be too strong. Simic is already fucking insanely strong. They didn't need to have their big game-ending haymakers. Not only, say, shifter changeling style tokens that it'll already make. Seeing how if this makes it 2/2, then makes it a 4/4, so is that. But I see this going very, very, very badly. Why the fuck would you give like the opponent's Uros like an ability to like targeted shoot down a dude? It's not like in their color identity. That's what annoys me. I see this being a 4 out of 5. This thing might be fucking crazy. God, I hope it's not. Oh, we had some good basic art styles. The Aurora Borealis effect is nice. But yeah, this is all the basic lands, so we'll just skim through these real fast. But they look nice. Not bad. Alright, but the next actual card is Battle for Bredegard. It is a saga for 1, a green and white. Create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. Second chapter is create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. And then the final chapter is choose any number of artifact tokens and or creature tokens you control with different names. For each of them, create a token that's a copy of it. I mean, I like the idea of like the humans and the elves banding together to like, you know, fight off the invaders. And the saga looks cool and it like kind of works with what you expect it to be. The ability to clone tokens, both of artifacts and of creatures that are uniquely named. That's pretty cool. I mean, green-white is a color that can make tokens, so there is that. As for the card, we'll give it like a... we'll give it like a 2 out of 5. It's nice, it's fun, flavorful, might have some French potential, but it's 2 out of 5. Ah, man. Next is Nafri, Betrayer King. 3 and a white and a black for a 4/3 legendary snow zombie wizard with other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1. And you can pay 3 snow to return Nafri from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I could see this being really strong, actually. But, I mean, maybe the snow creature type might be relevant, but maybe some sort of Dimir zombies that runs a lot of snow might actually make use of it. I actually see that, and like the snow creatures might be irrelevant. I could see this, because there's actually some existing zombie tribal synergy. We might actually give this like a 3 out of 5, just because I see some really fun stuff happening here. And I see some potential for some cool stuff, and the brewer's brain in me is like tickled that something cool might happen. Kind of the same with Agar over here, but we'll get to him in a moment. Oh, this card. Clarion Spirit is 1 and a white for a 2/2 spirit. Whenever you cast your second spell, each turn, make a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. I mean, maybe... I suppose relative to all these second spells each turn, I mean, it didn't really see play, or it doesn't see play now. Well, I guess the draw 2 version of this doesn't see play. So I don't think a second spell version will do any better. It's a good teaching card, however, so there is that. Might be good in draft because it makes flyers. But yeah, like a 1 out of 5. Next, my boy Agar. Agar, the Freezing Flame is 1... Agar, the Freezing Flame is a 3/3 legendary giant wizard for 1, a blue and a red. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, if a giant wizard or spell you control dealt damage to it this turn, draw a card. I see like a good is it like Lord for Commander, and God, I want to make that happen so bad. The wizard part of it, it might happen. If you want to build a more mid-rangey kind of value-y wizard deck, it's possible. The spell part is likely it's third on that list probably for a reason, as some appropriate thematic thing to the two requisite tribes that he's a part of. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5, much like Nafri. I don't think he's fantastic or going to break the format, but I see a lot of very fun like tribal builds and synergies coming out of him. So 3 out of 5. He makes me excited. On to the next one. Again, pardon any sort of what's the word? Pronunciation issues. We'll call it Freya's Retribution for 1, 2 white and a black. It's a saga. The first chapter is making a 4/4 Angel Warrior with flying and vigilance. Again, now you're making just better Sarah Angels on curve, which is nice. Until the end of the turn, angels you control gain tap to destroy target creature with power less than this creature's power, which is actually pretty good. Not only does it like make a better Sarah's Angels, so it can like attack and block, but also then giving not only the angel you made there, but all angels the ability to tap down or recruit creatures. This is how Orzhov Orzhov Angels like this and like your Lyra Dawnbringers are going to probably make a very fun Orzhov deck that we'll probably make. And then the third is angels you control get double strike to the end of the turn, which is a good way to close out the game. I'm actually going to give this like a 4 out of 5. Like it's very, very good. It makes a dude. It gives all your dudes of a actually historically like got some good synergy going on it kind of tribe. It gives like that tribe like the ability to not only like clear the board, but it will eventually give you a double strike way to like clear out the game. Freya's is like it's like a 4. It's like a 3 actually. Like a 3 or 4, somewhere in there. It's got me excited in the same way Nafri and Agar do, in that I see lots of fun build potentials. So maybe we'll make Freya's like a 3, honestly, to be fair, and somewhat consistent, I suppose. Next is Frost Peak Yeti, a 3 and a blue for a 3/3 snow creature that's a Yeti, and you can pay 1 in a snow, and it can't be blocked this turn, which is okay. It's fine. It's a teaching tool. I don't think you really use it. Again, unless snow really, really takes off, at which point maybe. But right now, I'm going to peg it as a 1 out of 5. Good teaching tool, but that's about it. Next is Notvold Recluse. Let's see, is a 2 and a green for a 4/2 spider with reach. It's fine. It's just a good teaching tool and something you wouldn't mind having in draft. 1 out of 5. Like the Frost Peak, a very good teaching tool. Next is let's see, Carfell Kennelmaster, 4 and a black for a zombie berserker that's 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, up to 2 target creatures get 1 toughness and indestructible until the end of the turn. It's like a 1 out of 5. It's like the fact that it has tribes means that this probably just means that the only place you'll like get this card is in some sort of either zombie or berserker precon deck. But outside of like again those teaching style decks, I don't think we'll see any play at all. Next is Redane, God of the Worthy. Is a 2 and a white 2/3 legendary god with flying and vigilance. and snow lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped, and non-creature spells your opponents cast will target 4 or more. Cost 4 or more. Cost 2 more to cast. Some sort of like, I mean, being able to stop big spells is nice, but we'll like see if it ends up being relevant. The slowing down snowlands and your Archon of Emeria style like tax effect is what's got me interested. Of course, having flying and vigilance is nice for like, you know, being able to like chip away and still present a blocker. So Redane's like a 2. Next is Valkyrie Redane's flip side. You can also be played as Valkyrie Protector Shield, which is 3 and a white for a legendary artifact. If a source an opponent controls will deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent 1 of that damage. Whenever you or another permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless the opponent plays 1. So it's a 4-mana artifact that you just play, and it prevents 1 point of damage to your stuff. And then if you get targeted by stuff, you or anything you control gets targeted by a thing your opponent does, it gets countered unless they pay 1. See, Valkyrie and Redane are like good like white taxi cards. They're okay white taxi cards. Like a 2 out of 5. Maybe a 3 out of 5 if snowlands become really, really prevalent, but again, we'll wait to see if that's the case. So like a 2 out of 5, potential to be a 3, depending on how the metagame goes. Oh, this card. Stalwart Valkyrie is 3 and a white for a 3/2 Angel Warrior with flying, and you may pay 1 and a white and exile a creature card from your graveyard rather than paying the spell's mana cost. So this card, I mean, okay, I'll be honest with it. My gut reaction is I don't see this really seeing a lot of play as a person who's tried to make some sort of, because it's not like a Narcomoeba, you don't just get it by exiling creature cards. And understandably, because that would be too strong. The subtypes for the creatures, the tribes, are of no relevance. You've never really, other than like a teaching tool in an angel or warrior deck, the only time it might see play is if you try to be cute and maybe you can get out like a 3/2 flyer on turn 2. Like, it's just like a Delver of Secrets with like far too many hoops to jump through, that if you need to, at bare minimum, could be a 4-mana 3/2 with flying. I'm going to give this still a 1 out of 5. It's just like a lesser Delver of Secrets, but to be fair, Delver of Secrets is probably too strong for Eternal formats. Or maybe not in Eternal formats, but if, like, this is what a Delver of Secrets would be relative to Historic, I believe. So, like, 1 out of 5 for Stalwart Valkyrie. Next. Holy hell. I've got a lot. Let's see. Icehide Troll is 3 and a green for a Snow Troll Warrior. That's 2/3. And you can pay 2 snow to give Icehide Troll +2 to power and indestructible until the end of the turn, and you can tap it, which is good. That, again, I just watched that Magic Arcanum video on trolls, which is good to, like, good thematics for what trolls have always been in Magic. These type of effects, though, will never usually see a whole lot of play. It's a very good teaching tool, and maybe some sort of silly commander troll tribal deck you might want to run it, but I don't even see this card being great if snow takes off. It's like a 1 out of 5. It's a teaching tool. Next is Provoke the Trolls. It is 3 and a red for an instant. It deals 3 damage to any target. If a creature is dealt damage this way, it gets 5 power until the end of the turn. It's like a 1 out of 5, but it's a good one, because it can, like, I mean, granted, be overcosted burn, but it can also be used as like a burn your own creature or a creature to like get it, you know, pissed. So we'll give like a 1 out of 5 because I don't think it'll see a whole lot of play, but it is pretty cool and I like the theme. Next is Surtland Frostpire. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps to make a red, where you can also pay two blue and 1 red to tap and sack it to scry 2, and then deals 2 damage to each creature. And then you can activate this ability at any time. You can cast a sorcery. Saffron Olive, as I do watch other people's videos, made a good point that it's like, I don't know if it's that good. You wouldn't run this effect if it was a spell, and I agree with that statement. Hell, there are better 2 damage sweepers for cheaper, but the ability to scry and do a little sweep, even if it is at sorcery speed, you wouldn't run that on a spell, but the opportunity cost of all of these style of lands in the format, or in the set, they get away with being a spell you never run because they're a land, and the opportunity cost of running them is, all things considered, really, really low. So, Surtland, like a 2 out of 5. I see potential for it, but it won't light the world on fire. I feel like that also, spoiler, might be a pretty similar prognosis for a lot of these lands, because I'm a fan of cool lands. Next is Draugr Thought Thief. Boy, oh boy, that speech impediment's coming out. Let's see. 2 and a blue for a 3/2 zombie rogue. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 3 cards of target player's library. Oh, you may look at the top card of that player's library. You may put that card into their graveyard. That might actually see some play. Maybe. And like if you really care about like what's coming up next. I don't know if you'd run it in either of its constituent tribes, but maybe you could. But seeing how information is always a useful tool in Magic, we'll give it like a 2 out of 5, but it's shaky. It's a very shaky 2 out of 5. That might not go well. Next is Jarl of the Forsaken. 3 and a black for a zombie 3 and a black for a zombie cleric with flash, and it's a 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn, and you can foretell it for 2. It's a killer. Any sort of removal is always nice and limited, especially if it has flash and works like it does. But in historic Bo3, it's like I see this being probably just a what's it called? A 1 out of 5. I might be wrong, but my initial gut feeling says it's a 1 out of 5 because he's like jumping through hoops ways to kill creatures never ever see play through formats. I mean, the most hoops you have to jump through is that Heartless Act that has to have a creature have no counters on it, and that still sees fringe play. But any more hoops than that you have to jump through is asking for trouble. Ah, yes, Port of Carfell. Again, in these lands, I'm gonna like draw from a lot of Saffron Olive's comments on it. But anywho, Port of Carfell is a land that enters the battlefield taps, and it taps for a blue. You can pay 3, a blue, and 2 black to sack the port, mill 4 cards, and then get a creature card from your graveyard back to the battlefield tapped. Paying, 6 mana and 7 for a mill yourself for 4 cards and then return a card. I don't think you'd run it. If I remember right, Saffron Olive was a little more warm and receptive to this card. comparing it to Gyruda or Garuda. But I believe Garuda, much like the port, I don't think it'll see a whole lot of play. I mean, Historic's, it's technically a faster format. I mean, it's an eternal format, but, even then, having a, turn 7 reanimation spell, you could just run the Garuda, but of course it's not, even if you want to run both of them, you can, because again, like the last one, because it's a land, it's not really much opportunity cost to put them in, so this port, and probably this whole land cycle, will be a 2 out of 5. Next is Blood on the Snow. That is some heavy artwork. 4 and 2 black for a snow sorcery. Choose 1 to destroy all creatures or destroy all walkers, which is good. More planeswalker hate is good. Gotta be honest. And then you can return a creature or planeswalker card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast this spell. This might see play in your Esper controls, your Sultai mid-ranges kind of decks. You normally wouldn't run a 6 mana sweeper really of any description. You wouldn't really run that. 5 is about the most you'll pay for it in the format, and you really shouldn't. The only reason why this will probably get a 3 out of 5 is for the ability to return something from your yard. I think that's very, very relevant. Now, of course, what you return will, your mileage will vary. But being able to return, a 6 mana something is nothing to scoff at. So we'll call it a 3 out of 5. I see him making some good, relatively good play in the format. Next is Beskir Shieldmate, is 1 and a white for a 2/1 human berserker. Or human warrior, sorry. When Beskar Shieldmate dies, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. These are fine. They're nothing to write home about. It's just a good white teaching card. It's fine. 1 out of 5. Next is pardon. Again, sorry. Next is Tuskeri Firewalker. 2 and a red for a 3/2 human berserker. With Boast and 1 mana, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. It's not that good, honestly. I don't see this seeing play. It's a good teaching tool, I suppose, and maybe mono red popper decks might like good card draw in the format. A good red deck wins and popper might like this. So unless you're doing something like that in Historic, where your whole goal is to not spin anything more than a common, I don't think you'd ever see this play, or ever see this see play. It's a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching spell. Might have some implications on popper, maybe. Next is Guard Armory. Guard Armory is a land and is the battlefield tapped and taps to make a white, where you can pay 1, 2 red and a white to tap and sack the armory to search your library for an aura card and or equipment card. So you can get both, which is actually kind of good. Which is actually card draw, technically netting cards in Boros, which is nice. And it is for auras or equipments, which are again what I think the Boros, if any sort of deck appears in the Boros colors out of this set, it will likely be Enchantress or equipment style decks. But yeah, having the Axe Guard, being able to basically tap and sack to tutor a couple cards and put them into your hand is very, very nice. I think this, we'll call this a 2 like the rest of this cycle, but boy, do I want this land in particular to actually work and see a lot of good play. I think this has potential, so we're going to call it a 2 out of 5 with a little asterisk that, boy oh boy, I want it to be a 3 out of 5. Boros players need a deck besides Feather, and they haven't really gotten that for a long time. Next is Rune Crown. Runed Crown, pardon, is a 3-mana artifact equipment with, oh my god, when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library, hand, and or graveyard for a rune card, put it onto the battlefield, attached to the Rune Crown. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. It costs 2 to equip, and the equipped creature gets +1/+1. But hey, if you put that Rune of Flight on it, it also gets flying, and when it enters, it draws a card. So, and it sticks around, the rune sticks around on the crown until the crown itself was destroyed. So being able to, like, augment your equipment is a very, very cool, like, ability. So we'll call that a 2 out of 5, in the same vein that, like, if some sort of aura or equipment style deck shows up, in whatever the colors might be, but I think the Rune Crown might have a place in it, also depending on what rune cards we get. Although I only saw 1 rune card in this whole list so far. So boy, I hope we get more. Next is Ascendant Spirit. Is a 1-mana 1/1 spirit where you can pay, oh, I remember this card. You can pay 2 snow to make it become a spirit warrior. That is a 2/3, just period. Then you can pay 3 snow if it is a warrior, i.e. if you've activated the first ability. You can put a flying counter on the Ascendant Spirit, and it becomes a spirit warrior angel with power toughness 4/4. So you're basically making a 3-mana above rate Sarah Angel, like very above rate Sarah Angel, but you gotta jump through a lot of hoops. And then if you pay 4 snow mana, if Ascendant Spirit is an angel, i.e. if you've done the previous 2 chapters, we'll call them, put 2 1/1 counters on it, and it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Now, other people are a little, and understandably, iffy on this, because hell, even in Historic, it dies to Fatal Push, it dies to Bloodchief's Thirst. It can die to a lot of, like, spells, even a lot of burn spells before the first chapter goes off. But you don't run this for spirits, I think, and I don't think spirits really want this. But maybe it does. It might see some play in spirits if you get some sort of, like, Kira in there also. I could actually see this in like mono blue tempo if it adopts a lot of snow basics. Could easily run this card and, like, run away with goddamn games. I'm actually a little concerned that this might be the case. So it might see some spirit play in the format, because those decks do exist. But I'm really scared that this might become like a fucking all-star in mono blue tempo. So I'm gonna actually give this 3. I see this setting off one deck, like, really, really well, and maybe affecting, like, a deck or 2. And that it might go in the spirits. It may go in spirits. It'll probably go in spirits. It may go in angels or warriors, but that's probably not why you do it. And, I mean, I guess maybe if you have, like, a pure snow deck, if you want that to be good, it might go in there. So, we'll go, yeah, 3 out of 5, Ascendant Spirit. Really powers up 1. It might give some power or some life to 2 other archetypes. So, that'll be 3 out of 5 for us. Next is Skimfar Avenger. 1 and a black for a Elf Berserker. Whenever another non-token elf or berserker you control dies, you draw a card and lose a life. It's like a elf or berserker Midnight Reaper for 1 less mana. So I imagine it'll see some play. It's nice board sweep protection, ensuring that you don't, like, just empty out your hand and don't have any sort of gas left over. So if you're running elf decks or berserker decks, you got something to play in. But other than that, you don't run it. So it's like a 2 out of 5 with some good synergy support to the respective tribes, but you literally, there's no reason to run it anywhere else. Next is Poison the Cup. 1 and 2 black for an instant to destroy target creature. And if the spell is foretold, you can scry 2. Which actually makes this pretty good, honestly. It basically makes it a Doom Blade. I actually think this might see a lot of play. Foretelling it for 2 to play and to foretell. Besides the normal foretelling cost of 2, as well as being able to play it for another 2, is a nice ability to just bank a murder, a creature removal spell, and be able to curate your top draws. I could see this actually being like a 3 out of 5, maybe 4. 4 is like the ceiling, depending on how it goes, but it doesn't mess with walkers, so we're gonna probably put this at a 3. I could see this maybe becoming like a new staple of black removal in the format. So yeah, Poison the Cup, 3 out of 5. Pretty good. Strategic Planning, 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, 1 into your hand, rest into your yard. We'll give this a 2 out of 5, because I could see maybe, like, again, like my Arclight Phoenix-y style, maybe like Arclight Hollow One decks might want to run it, some combo decks might want to run it, some sort of self-mill Narcomoeba Dredgeless kind of, or Dredge style decks that I'm trying to get work might use these. But at worst, it's just like, what's that? What's that card called? Preordain, I think. It's like a 2 out of 5. I think that it might have fringe applications in some like corner case decks that I'm building, but I'm not certain that other people will see the same potential that I do. So, 2 out of 5 for strategic planning. Next is Usher the Fallen. It's a 1 mana, 2/1 Spirit Warrior, where you can boast for 1 and a white to make a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. This is just, I mean, it's fine. It's a good teaching tool. I don't really see you using this a whole hell of a lot outside of these, because you don't want to run them in spirit decks for damn sure. Warrior decks, you might want to run them. Maybe some sort of boast deck, but I don't think that boast deck exists. So we're going to call that, yeah, Usher the Fallen, 1 out of 5. Good teaching card. Next is In Search of Greatness. Oh yeah, this fucking short story of a card. 2 green enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with a converted mana cost equal to 1 plus whatever the highest CMC amongst permanents you control without paying its mana cost. So, we'll say you play it on turn 2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can play a 3-drop from your hand, assuming the Search for Greatness is the highest cost. So you can get a 3 cost for free, but if you don't or can't, then you scry 1. Of course, and there are starting example, let's say a Search of Greatness on 2 gives you a free Uro on turn 3. Or, well, we'll say it gives you like a questing, not questing beast, what is that? 3 mana 5/5. Some sort of the Beast Noble, whatever his name is. Yeah, okay, well, okay, and Search of Greatness is a weird one. It basically lets you skip forward 1 mana, depending on what your highest cost is, of cards that you own, and you can go ahead 1 mana for free amongst cards in your hand. I'm going to call this a 2 out of 5. Nothing in my head jumps out and says this card's going to be absolutely banana sandwiches crazy broken, but I'm certain there's some corner case that me not being a combo player, that I just can't think of. So yeah, In Search of Greatness, 2 out of 5. Revitalize, a simple reprint, 1 in a blue, 1 in a white, to gain 3 life, draw a card. It's a very good teaching tool. Nice if you're in a Soul Sisters deck. Being able to replace itself is nice. Revitalize, like a 2 out of 5. It's a teaching tool that actually sees some play. 2 out of 5, Revitalize. Next is Valkyrie Sword. Oh, so there's kind of a sub-theme here. Valkyrie Sword is a 1 and a white artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 4 and a white. If you do, you make a 4/4 Angel Warrior token with flying and vigilance, and then you attach the sword to it, where the equipped creature gets +2/+1 and 3. I imagine this is going to be a cycle, so probably all these cards are gonna get like a 2 out of 5. They're only about as strong as the creature type that it makes is, and I mean, Angels, I see some potential really happening here, but I don't think you'd probably, well, because it's white, you might run it in some sort of Boros base equipment deck, but like other than that, and maybe it's like in a Angel deck, I don't think you'll really see play. Again, all these are probably going to be like 2 out of 5s. Let's see, next is Dwarven Reinforcements. 4 mana to create 2/1 red dwarf berserker creature tokens, or you can foretell it for 2. It's fine. It's a good teaching card. You know, there's some support for, you know, dwarves and berserkers in the format, but that's not really what you run it for. That old school Boros Transmog deck into Craterhoof might actually want to play this card, but like other than that, unless the dwarf or berserker part of it really takes off, it's a good teaching card. So I'll call it like a 1 out of 5 because it's a good teaching card. I don't know if it matters that much of its creature types, and I can only see one deck that I haven't seen played in months potentially using it. So yeah, 1 out of 5. Next is Skimfar Elderhall. Where it enters the battlefield tapped. Taps to add a green, and you can pay 2 black and a green to tap and sack it to where up to one creature you don't control gets -2/-2 until the end of the turn. Then you make 2 1/1 green elf warriors, and then you can activate this. Okay, it's fine. It's not bad. Again, like all of these, they're pretty much 2 out of 5. Being able to potentially remove a creature and make 2 creatures of your own are nice. Again, because you're just sitting on this on a land, you don't mind running it. The fact that elves might actually see some real like play actually gives me some hope that this might be a good 2 out of 5. So yeah, Skimfar Elderhall, probably again like the rest of these, but we'll see. 2 out of 5. Land destruction. A man after my heart. Next in the cycle is the Notvold Slumbermound, where it is a land and is the battlefield tapped. Taps for a red, and then you can pay 3 a red and 2 green to tap and sack it to destroy a target land and make a 4/4 troll warrior creature token with trample. Honestly, pretty good. I think this might actually see. I'm gonna say that it might see some play. If this might actually probably it's a 2 out of 5 like normal. It'll see a good amount of play if the God tree sees a lot of play, and like your Gruul aggro decks or or any deck that contains Gruul wants to like have a game 1 answer to like a God tree. Notvold Slumbermound might be it, as well as making a good creature token to also help close out the game. I'll give this one a 2 out of 5, but I actually see some potential for this to be like a 3, depending on the meta unfolding in a very particular way. See, next is Tundra Fumarole, is a snow sorcery for 1 and 2 red, where it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you can add 1 colorless for each snow mana spent to cast this spell. Until the end of the turn, you don't lose mana as a step. A 3 mana, if you pay 3 snow mana, does 4 damage to a creature or walker, and then you get refunded 3 colorless mana. You aren't even going up on mana, but that one's actually kind of free. I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5 because again, historically, free mana gets fucky fast. So this has the potential to go a little goddamn sideways. But because I don't know how it might go sideways, we'll just judge it more on the 4 damage to a target creature a walker for 4. That's not the worst, and it is snow, so I guess that's something. So yeah, Tundra Fumarole, like a 2 out of 5. Next is Axguard Braggart. Is a 3 and a white for a 3/3 dwarf warrior where you can boast for 1 and a white to untap Axguard Braggart and put a 1/1 counter on it. It's nice. It's a good teaching tool. Probably very good in limited, but I don't think you'd really see that many. Well, because you can only boast once. I was gonna say there's like probably some weird infinite combo kind of thing going on there, but boast has safeguards, protected or built-in safeguards against that in the rules text. So Axguard Braggart, like a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching tool. That's about it. Next is Fearless Liberator. Is a 1 and a red for a 2/1 Dwarf Berserker, where you can boast for 2 and a red to make a 2/1 red Dwarf Berserker creature token. It's like a 1 out of 5. You'll almost never run that in outside of a teaching deck. I don't think Dwarf Berserkers are going to get enough love to where you really care about that, but I could be wrong. But I stand by my 1 out of 5 statement. Next is Goldmaw Champion. It is 2 and a white for a 2/3 Dwarf Warrior, where you can boast to tap target creature. I guess you can. I mean, that's not. I don't think this is a good card, but as I imagine, you can boast as you attack, and then before they declare blockers, you can boast and tap down a potentially problematic blocker that you don't want to deal with, is what I think will happen. So we'll like. It's like a 1 out of 5. Yeah, it's a good teaching tool, but that's about it. Next is Scorn Effigy. Let's see. 3 mana, 2/3 Scarecrow, but Foretell for 0. I mean, a 2 mana, 2/3 artifact creature is not awful. Being able to foretell it for 0, there's something there. I'm gonna give this like a 2 out of 5 because, while normally this is a good like teaching tool, but because it can like be air quote cast for free, I see something here. Though I'm not like totally committed or convinced, but there's something here. I just need to look for it. Scorn Effigy, 2 out of 5. Jesus Christ. There's a lot of these. Next is Vault Robber. Is 1 and a red for a 1/3 Dwarf Rogue, where you pay 1 and tap to exile a creature card from your graveyard and make a treasure token. That's actually not that bad. I mean, besides like seeing play in some teachery decks, I think this actually might have a home in some sort of Revel in Riches style treasure deck or some Goldspan Dragon trying to cheat something big into play, or big dragon into play style deck is where I see this might have some sort of like home, maybe being able to like create multiple treasure tokens. So we'll give this like a 2 out of 5 because I see potential in it. And I think it's potential you don't have to look that far for. Well, the alt art for Cosmea looks okay. Alt art, actually. Pardon the little flub up there. But anywho, Cosmea, God of the Voyage. Oh, this fucking paragraph. 2 and a blue for a 2/4 legendary god. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Cosmea. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Cosmea is exiled, you may put a voyage counter on it. If you don't put a voyage counter on it, return it to Cosmea to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters, where X with X +1/+1 counters on it. Draw X cards, where X is the number of voyage counters. Okay, so it's like some recurring card draw-y, make your thing get bigger eventually. I'm not impressed by this card at all. But the Obenkeel on the reverse side is a 1 and a blue for a 3/3 vehicle that crew cost of 1, and it says whenever a vehicle, any vehicle, not just this vehicle, you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards on top of their library. You may play lands from among those cards as long as they remain exiled. Being able to steal people's lands is pretty cool. But man, you gotta jump through a lot of hoops. Maybe if vehicles have some sort of support, the backside might be useful. So we'll give the Omen Keel and... fuck. Well, now we gotta find a way back through. Yay! Where are we? Hang on. I suppose we'll see. Dear God, we're nowhere near the end. Hang on, let me see here. I'm not gonna lie, that really actually annoys me. Make sure I'm doing this the right way. I think we're going... crap. Alright. Are we really nowhere near? Dear fucking God. Okay, we're not that far off. Pardon the technical difficulties. I've been talking for a long time and my brain's starting to fray. The Omen Keel itself, the card as a whole is like 2 out of 5. I'm sure there are some weird fringe applications that I'm not seeing, and the ability to yoink people's lands is kind of nice. Cosmia herself is so goddamn boring. It's just to like, hey, make it big, get rid of this card, and then you can like let it grow and just tick away freely, and then you just draw a lot of cards, and it's big, but it can be chumped for days. The boat, however, the Omen Keel is kind of interesting. I'm sure there's some sort of targeted or like very niche example of what the card can do, so we'll give it like a 2 out of 5. Gates of the Istfell. Oh, it's part of that I think that earlier cycle. Gates of the Istfell, and it's land, and it is taps for white, and then you can tap 2 a white and 2 blue to tap and sack it to gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. I think this will actually, in like Azorius control or Azorius base control decks, I think this will actually see a fuckload of play, seeing how Memorial of War once upon a time did, and sometimes rarely still does see play. So I'm actually going to give this a 3. Weirdly, like a 3 out of 5. Next is Arnie Slays the Troll. Is a saga for a red and a green. Chapter 1 is target creature you control fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Alright, that's fine. Second is add a red, add 1 red mana, and put 2 1/1 counters on up to 1 target creature you control. Alright, that's weird that you're giving it the mana, but that's fine. And making a creature bigger. 3 is you gain life equal to the greatest power of creatures. Okay. Third chapter is, you gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. I was gonna say this is actually like a 1 for me before that third saga, or third chapter. But, because it's just like, I can't think of any way you really choose to run it. So there was that. But the third saga thing is like a good, in the Gruul mirror matchup, you bring this in to like maybe control the board, at minimum maybe like gain a lot of life and not die the next turn. So Arnie is like a 2 out of 5, but it's tentative. Now Finn, oh my god, Finn the Fang Bearer. This is going to be our day 1 deck. He's uncommon, so we're doing this deck. He's going to be the first deck you see on the channel. And hell, it might even do multiple videos on him because I think he's going to be this good. Finn the Fang Bearer is 1 and a green for a legendary human warrior with Death Touch. He's a 1/3. Whenever any creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. It's like, infects like brother. And it says in parentheses, a player with 10 or more poison counters just loses the game. Hard. Doesn't matter how much life you have. I'm gonna actually call Finn a 5 out of 5. I think this card is fan-fucking-tastic. This is my line in the sand. I think Golgari Death Touch Tribal with like running 4 Finns is going to be fucking incredible. It's going to be the aggro deck the format fucking needs. It has access to Hand Hate for information and Thoughtseize. It has access to Sweeper Protection in the form of Heroic Intervention in the sideboard or main board. There are a buttload of good variable option plays and Death Touch creatures, or variable options in Death Touch creatures, so it's accessible at all budget levels. It only gets better. Finn the Fang Bearer, 5 out of 5. Bam, 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 bam. Like 5. It's going to be, I think, the best card of the format so far. Now, I don't think there's going to be any other 5s today, but that's okay. 5s are supposed to be rare. Next is Nico Defies Destiny. 1 is a saga for 1, a white and a blue. First chapter is you gain 2 life for each foretold card you own in exile. It's okay. If you play it on curve, you're only gaining 2 life, which is fine. Nothing to write home about. Though if you play it later on in the game, I could see you getting more. So, Chapter 2. Add a white and a blue. Spend this mana only to foretell cards or to cast spells that have foretell. If Azorius ends up like enjoying foretell, I can see this card being kind of a mainstay so far. And then 3 gives you, or the third chapter says return target card with foretell from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, I will give this a 2 out of 5. What? Where if Azorius really picks up and runs with some foretell cards, I think this will see more play in like your Azorius-based, like control-y, mid-rangey style decks. But if they pick up on the foretell, I think this card will become very popular. So like a 2 out of 5 for Nico Defies Destiny. This next one's pretty cool. Return Upon the Tide. 4 and a black for a sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it's an elf, create 2 1/1 green elf warrior tokens, basically. Creature tokens, sorry. And you can foretell it for 4. So basically 4 mana being able to revive any creature, period. And if it's an elf, getting 2 smaller elves with it. I see this card actually maybe being a 3. I'm sure there's some weird corner case elf that's like absolutely crazy, but if nothing else, getting a reincarnate or like a reanimate effect for 4 mana is really, really good. And if you really, really enjoy there's a really good elf to do this with, effectively acting as additional copies of the elf in question past copies 4, or past copy 4, I see this, like, granted being a very niche, only in elves really, or probably only in elves being played, but it could be played, who knows. So we're going to give a Return Upon the Tide 3 stars, but it's 3 stars in a very narrow selection of decks. Next is Battle Mammoth. I believe this is one of the earlier cards spoiled or leaked. Where Battle Mammoth is 3 and 2 green for a 6/5 elephant with trample. And whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. Granted, green getting more card draw because they need it. And then you can foretell it for 4. So getting this a 4 mana 6/5 trample with a Shaper Sanctuary effect on it. It's honestly really annoying, but I think this might be a 4 out of 5. It's another, like, I think really... I don't think this is a pushed mythic, but it's like a very, very strong mythic for green, which gives it more health that it probably didn't need. Just run like a bunch of like 3 Uros and like 4 Battle Mammoths and just start going to town on people. So yeah, Battle Mammoth probably a 4 out of 5. I'm a little concerned that this card might become really popular and common. I don't think it's impossible because it doesn't fizzle the spell. It just gives them cards for it. So, and I think that's probably the best way to do it. So yeah, 4 to 5 with potential for that to go totally sideways. Oh, well, Crippling Fear. Choose. Oh, it's the inverse of a Witch's Vengeance. 2 and 2 black for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't the chosen type get -3/-3 until the end of the turn. Okay, so it's an outwards. It's like a. It's the inverse of a Witch's Vengeance, which is nice if you're running well, much. It has the same kind of issues that a Witch's Vengeance has, and that it's great if only one of you is running a creature type in question, but begins to get worse if both of you are running it. Still might see some play. Sweepers are always popular in the format, and I'm hoping that enough tribal decks will come out of this. So, give it like a 3 out of 5. I think there's some potential there. Grizzled Rider, a 5-mana 5/5 elf warrior. So we'll just, yeah, it's like a 1 out of 5. Good teaching tool. But even a better teaching tool is the next Ravenous Lindworm. 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 worm that when it enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life. Cards like this and your Colossal Dreadmaw are like the perfect case for teaching new players like what green is all about. Getting a couple ram spells out early, getting a Ravenous Lindworm like on turn 3 or 4, and just having a big dude that has some extra effect when it comes into play. I think Ravenous Lindworm, it's like, again, it's a 1 out of 5, but it's the best kind of 1 out of 5. It is basically everything green as a singular color wants to be and do. Next is Dwarven Hammer. 2 and a red for a artifact equipment where you may... Oh, okay, this is the... Alright, this is the red version of that. Of those other 2 cards. Okay. 2 and a red artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 2/1 red dwarf creature token, then attach Dwarven Hammer to it. The equipped creature gets +3 power. It gets 3 power and has trample. Pardon. And it equips for 3. Again, much like the Angel one and the Zombie one, they will likely be as good as their supported tribes are. Although with, again, the aforementioned, or the previous white one that made the Angel, because it's in this case, red, because a Boris equipment deck might want to run it, maybe, as it effectively is like a living weapon, more or less. So it might see play, so we'll call it like a 2 out of 5, but we'll see. Next is Master Skald. It is a 4 and a white for a 4/4 dwarf warrior. And when it enters the battlefield, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty good, honestly. It's a good teaching tool. Sort of kind of a weird back-asswards way of like really over-expensive card draw in white. You just have to like get rid of 1 card in your yard to get another chance with a different card. So it's like a 1 out of 5. Good teaching tool. Can't ask for much more than that, honestly. Let's see. Next is Glorious Protector. 2 and 2 white for an Angel Cleric with 3/4 that has flash and flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until Glorious Protector leaves the battlefield. And you can foretell it for 3. You don't want to run this in an angel deck because I understand, angels are strong and powerful and they don't need protecting. They're the ones who protect. So it makes sense from like a flavor standpoint. I can see you, maybe getting something going here, something silly. But if nothing else, it could be a good, save a chump blocker that you actually don't want to chump that isn't an angel. I see this card being like a 2 out of 5. I'm sure there are some corner cases that are weird, but like it's just a good card. It's fine. I see there are probably some fringe applications, but it's nothing to write home about. I would almost call this a bulk rare, kind of teaching rare, but I'm not going to say that. I do see some instances in which it might be useful. All right, next is Arachniform. 1 and a green for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature, and it gets +2/2, has reach, and is every creature type. I mean, unless you're running Changeling Tribal unlike Commander, there's almost no reason to run this ever in Constructed. You don't really need... There's better ways to get reach and deal with flyers. There are better enchantments that are just buff that will stick for Enchanter-style decks. So it's like a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching tool. Maybe fringe play in some silly 5-color Changeling Commander deck. Next is Legiara Lake. It is land, enters the battlefield tapped, taps for a white, and you can pay 2 green, and a blue, and then tap and sack the Mirror Lake to create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter, and activate this ability at any time you can cast a sorcery. Again, like the other lands in this cycle, it's okay. It's fine. It's not going to like really not win any awards. Again, and if you're not running like a copycat style like Simic deck, I don't know if you'll ever really run it. But if you do, then you might as well bring in 1 or 2 of the deck, 1 or 2 into the deck. So like the other ones, like a 2 out of 5. I like these. All of these lands is like a set and a theme because it does work. Next, Disdainful Stroke. It's a good one. Just 1 and a blue for an instant to counter target spell, cost 4 or greater. Good, solid, sees lots of sideboard play. Hell, I'm running it in my, again, in the hopefully soon to be released video for Hollow Arclight build, as you'll see soon. Honestly, this was like a 3 out of 5. It's very good. It's not an all-star. It's very good sideboard hate. Honestly, really, really good. Man. Doomscourge Titan. 4 and 2 red for a giant berserker. That's 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, all creatures you control will get +1 power and haste until the end of the turn, and you can foretell it for 5. This is an A-OK creature for like teaching decks. I mean, there's not much else to say about it. Yeah, it's like a good... I don't think you'll really run this in like a giant or berserker deck. At least I don't think so. So we're gonna call this a good teaching, like a good top end for like a teaching deck that's like very aggro based in red. So like 1 out of 5. Next is Legiara Gladewalker. 3 and a green for a 3/3 changeling. We pay 2 and a green, tap and exile a creature card from your graveyard to put 2 1/1 counters on target creature. Activate this ability at any time you can control a sorcery. Changing is nice, but again, will only matter as much. The changing is nice, but so I guess I suppose it can go in any sort of tribe in question, but really the reason why you run it is to put the 2 1/1 counters on a creature. So maybe if some sort of like Selesnya +1/+1 counter deck thing starts taking off, this might see play, but I'm not sold. But because of that very clear, like case it's designed for, we'll give it a 2 out of 5. Next is Ascent of the Worthy as a saga for 1, a white, and a black. The first 2 chapters are choose a creature you control until your next turn. All damage that would be dealt to creatures you control is directed to the 1 creature instead. So making your first 2 are chapters of the saga are choose 1 creature. That creature is your lightning rod of damage. And then your 3rd chapter is return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a flying counter on it. He is an angel warrior in addition. That is a very cool flavor card. The art looks cool. You might run it in some sort of angel warrior thing. You might do it in some sort of reanimation deck. I see two of these places that it might stick, and the art and it all matches. It is a good theme. So we'll call it like a 2 out of 5. Yes, Colossal Plow for the Colossal Ox from earlier. Colossal Plow is a 2-mana vehicle that has a crew of 6. Whenever Colossal Plow attacks, add 3 white and gain 3 life. And until the end of your turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases ends. I can see some very crazy white ramp. I see, like, the crew cost will be prohibitive, but not impossible to get. So, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 because I see some, like, really cool potential here. And again, like, air quote, free mana is always a little bit of trouble, though it is in white, so you're, like, somewhat limited in what you can do. So we'll call it, like, a 3 out of 5. It gets the brewer's brain tingling on what may or may not or can or can't happen with that card. So yeah, Colossal Plow, again, 3 out of 5. Next is Maha Guard Protector. 2 a green and 2 white for a 2/3 legendary human warrior, where other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. Good in a commander, like, just tokeny go wide, landfall tokeny decks where you want to go wide and make your dudes real big. And it can do the same thing in historic if some sort of green-white tokens kind of thing happens. Green-white creature tokens go wide deck happens, which it might. I see some real potential in, like, a Abzan Legends deck, which might be another deck that gets done or made eventually. So we'll give this like a 3 out of 5. I see a lot of potential homes for this, but I don't think it's gonna, like, break the format. Next is Raven Wings, a 2-mana equipment where equipped creature gets +1/+0, has flying, and is a bird in addition to its other types. It's a good teaching card, good to explain how equipment works to people. Again, if you find some cool bird commander tribal deck thing with your Animal Sanctuary and that one bird sec draw outlet card that's black bordered or brown bordered, whatever. But in historic BO3, it's a good teaching card. That's about it. Next is Warhorn Blast, a 4 and white for an instant, where creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of the turn. And you can foretell it for 3. These are like 1 out of 5. They're teaching spells. It's just a white rally effect to end the game with 1 big swoop and turn. There are a buttload of these in the format. Of course, if it's your first time learning and it's your first card, it's a good card to show you what white can do. 1 out of 5. Good teaching card. Next is Battlefield Raptor, a 1-mana 1/2 bird with flying and first strike. I think this card's pretty good. Again, some sort of like bird, Azorius bird tribal deck and commander can totally work. Maybe in some sort of white weenie deck that's like really kind of budget friendly. Or like blue-white flyers might actually use this card. So we'll give it like a 2 out of 5 in historic. Huh. Sorry, that sounded like somebody outside my home. Well, now the gate isn't open, so pardon me, I'm just, spazzing and losing my mind. Next is the Story Seeker. It's a 2-mana 2/2 dwarf cleric with lifelink. It's fine. Nothing to write home about. Good teaching card. Next is Arnie Brokenbrow. Fucking stupid name. 2 in a red for a 3/3 legendary human berserker with haste, and your boast is 1, and you can change Arnie's base power to 1 plus the greatest power among other creatures you control until the end of the turn. I don't think this card is good at all. It is a 3 mana, 3/3 haste that can sometimes be a 3 mana X3 with haste. I don't see this ever being good. Like, I just don't. Like, I'd actually call this like a teaching card. I think this card's honestly very bad and will not see play. Outside of like your, hey, here's your teaching deck. I hope a Magic Arena still does that, like whenever you complete your base tutorial, you get like your monocolored decks, and then you go through the like second round of tutorial and you get a whole bunch of dual colored decks. If you don't get it in that set, never play it. I genuinely think this card is actually crap. Next is Rootless Hue. Is a 3 and 2 green for a 5/4 tree folk, and when it dies, search your library for a creature card with power or toughness 6 or greater, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. I'm gonna give this a really, really shaky 2 out of 5, only because it's like sort of a creature tutor thing you might make use of. Although let it be known that this might actually not do anything. This might be a 1 out of 5. Again, it's like right on the like fence post of a 1 and a 2, and it can go either way, to be entirely honest. Next is Frost Augur. It is a 1 blue for a snow human wizard. That's 1 mana snow human wizard. It's a 1/2, and for 1 snow, you can tap to look at the top card of your library. If it's a snow card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. It's okay. It's fine. We'll go over to 2 out of 5 because if snow decks become really, really popular, being able to like filter out draws and having a kind of Dryad Green Seekery style effect, but for snow cards. If snow becomes really, really popular, I could see this actually taking off. So we'll call it like a 2 out of 5. Next is Shimmerdrift Vale. It is a snow land that enters the battlefield tapped. Enters the battlefield, choose a color, and you can tap to add 1 mana of the chosen color. If snow lands are popular, and you're like mostly... It's a good budget land for snow lands, by the way. But if you're like a 75% like 1 color deck, and you just want to like have a snow land, and you need like a splash for the other colors outside of the 4, you know, copies you're already allowed of whatever your snow guild land is, or your snow guild gate is. This is like extra copies of that. You'll only use them in snow decks, but if you do, I think they can be pretty good. And they're common, sorry, so it's a good budget option. So we'll give it like a 2 out of 5. It's only as strong as snow lands will be strong. Next is Blessing of Frost. 3 and a... hang on. Yeah, Blessing of Frost. 3 and a green for a snow sorcery. Distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures you control, where X is the number of snow spent to cast this spell, so at most 4. Then draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. I don't think this card will really see that much play, unless that green-white token. We'll give it a 2 out of 5. This maybe, like, it's a good teaching tool. It's fine, and it's, if snow lands are good, then it might see some play, or maybe if a green-white +1/+1 counters deck somehow emerges from this set, then it might be pretty good there. But even then, I'm not like sold. So we'll give it like a 2 out of 5. Next is Priest of the Haunted Edge. Is 1 and a black for a snow creature zombie cleric. That's 0/4. Where you can tap and sacrifice the priest, where target creature gets -X until end of the turn, where X is the number of snow lands you control. Activate this ability only at any time you can cast a sorcery. I think this is a 1 out of 5. It's a good snow creature, and in limited I can see it being very good removal. But outside of that, in like proper constructed formats, like again historic, I don't see it seeing that much play. And being a zombie and a cleric is like, I don't think will save this card from being bad. you know, for being teaching cards. Next is Batter Shield Warrior, 2 and a white for a 2/2 human warrior, where you can boast for 1 and a white. The creatures you control +1/+1 until end of turn. Man, struggling, losing the battle here. Batter Shield Warrior, it's a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching tool, but you never run it in anything else. Again, there are better like rallying effects in white. This weird card. Next is Immerstrom Predator. Is for 2, a red and a black for a vampire dragon that's 3/3 and has flying. When it enters the battlefield, when it becomes tapped. Pardon. When this card becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. Put a 1/1 counter on the Predator on this card, and you can sacrifice another creature, to give it indestructible and to tap it. It's like a 2 out of 5. You might run it in like some Rakdos-based sacrifice deck, but other than that, I don't see this card ever seeing play ever. I mean, maybe some sort of like graveyard hate in a Rakdos deck, but we're talking some real corner case scenarios here. So like a 2 out of 5. Next is the Raven's Warning. 1, a blue and a white saga. First chapter is make a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. You gain 2 life, which is fine. Make a dude, gain some life, don't die. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control with flying deal combat damage to a player. Wait, what? Whenever 1 or more creatures you control with flying deal combat damage to a player this turn, look at that player's hand and draw a card. And then third chapters may put a card from outside you own. Blue-white flyers. This might literally be the card everything they want out of a card. Blue-white flyers are like mono blue tempo wants to like splash into white for this card in replacement of like a Brineborn Cutthroat. I can see this card being really, really good. I'm gonna actually give this a 4 out of 5 because it actually like empowers like I think one deck that only needs a very small and minor splash for it, and it could help what was a deck that kind of did show up with relative frequency, rise back up to the forefront. The Raven's Warning, I'm actually going to give a 4 out of 5. On to the next one. Oh, fearless poppers. Shout out, cute poppers. Cosmos Elixir, however, is what we're going to do. 4 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If your life total is greater than your starting life total, otherwise you gain 2 life. If you're running mono white or Orzhov Soul Sisters and you're looking to gain a lot of life, this is the card for you. Other than that, don't run it, really. I mean, life gain is not that important. You're really wanting it for the front half of drawing a card if your life is past your start or higher than your start. So yeah, Cosmos Elixir, like 2 out of 5. It goes in a couple good decks, a couple of pre-existing decks already, and nothing else. Next is Fearless Pup, a 1/1 wolf with first strike and boast. Fearless Pup gets +2. Boast for 2 and a red, where Fearless Pup gets 2 attack till the end of the turn. Awoo! He's so cute. You know what? I'm gonna say 2 out of 5 because it's a cute boy, cute little puppers, or a cute girl. Cute, yeah, it was called cute puppers. Goddamn adorable. Because it has first strike. I mean, it's not like awful. If this was like a 1/1 wolf without first strike and the same boast ability, even if he was a good boy, I'd say he's a teaching card. But because he has first strike, maybe he might see some play outside of the cute factor, which is granted immense. Let's see. Next card is Frenzied Raider, which is 1 and a red for a 2/2 Demon Berserker, and whenever you activate a boast ability, put a +1/+1 counter on Frenzied Raider. I don't see this card being that good. It's a good teaching tool and will come in like some sort of Demon Rakdosi boast deck, but you'll never play it outside of there, and even then it's not that good in the deck. So Frenzied Raider is a 1 out of 5. I think we're getting to somewhat close to the end. Oh my god, I'm dying. Next is Horizon Seeker, 2 and a green for a 3/2 human warrior. We can boast for 1 and a green to search your library for a basic land, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. That's fine. It's a good card. Good learning card. Nice, air quote, repeatable, we'll call it tutoring for a land, basic land. But yeah, other than that, it's a 1 out of 5. It's a good teaching card. Next is Tyrite Sanctum. Oh yeah, this is the merchant reveal. It's a land that you can tap to add a colorless. You can pay 2 and tap the land for target legendary creature to become a god in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on it, which is, I imagine, how many legendary figures in Kaldheim lore became the gods they are, is through going to the Tyrite Sanctum. And you pay 4 and tap and then sacrifice the Sanctum to put an indestructible counter on target god. If you run some World Tree shenanigan god deck, you might actually make some stuff happen here. Maybe you can see some fringe play in like a Legends Matter kind of deck, maybe. But it is also a non-basic land, and there's a good amount of hate in the format. But I'll call it 3 because I like the flavor of it and the lore, and I see several decks forming loosely in my mind around it. Again, the Brewer's brain is just kind of tickled by it a little bit. So yeah, Tyrite Sanctum, 3 out of 5. Next is Svala Ice Shaper, 1 green and a red for a legendary snow troll warrior. That's 2/4. And you can pay 3 and tap it to create a colorless snow artifact token named Icy Manalith with tap and add 1 mana of any color to your library. And then for 6, a red and a green, you look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may cast a spell from among them without paying its cost. Put the rest in the bottom of your field in the library, or the rest of the bottom in your library in a random order. I apologize as my brain starts to fray more and more during this. This is a fucking fantastic commander card if you want to run like some sort of like snow deck, or even just a good like red-green value-y deck. Some sort of red-green value-y style deck, or red-green ramp in Historic might actually run this, because does it say? Yeah, it just says a spell of any type. So maybe some sort of like Gruul ramp deck might want this in Historic. It doesn't really fit with any decks right now, but I could see it like getting added to some other decks. It might actually form a new deck. So we're gonna actually give Svala the Ice Shaper like a 3 out of 5. I see a lot of potential here, and again, it tickles the Brewer's brain. Oh, we're at the fucking top! Yay! Next is Graven Lore, 3 and 2 white for a snow instance, where you can scry X, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast a spell, then draw 3 cards. So at most, draw 5, scry 5, draw 3, which is nice. But there is that one addendum card that does the same thing. It's not bad. It's like a 2 out of 5. If Snow becomes really popular, it'll be a good card, but it'll only be good if Snow is good. Immerstrom Skull Cairn. That is the most metal goddamn name ever. Is land and is the battlefield tapped and taps for a red. We can pay 1 a red and 1 a black and 2 red to tap and sack it, where it deals 3 damage to target player, and then that player discards a card, and you can only do this when you can cast a sorcery. Did you want another like an additional form of Kruxa in your Rakdos hand hate deck? It'll work. Again, like all these cards in this cycle. Pretty good. It's nice. Like 2 out of 5 for all the same reasons. Low opportunity cost. Can see some real plays. Left will be good. Is that a sleeve tattoo on the guy? Nice. So yeah, Immerstrom Skull Cairn. 2 out of 5. On to the final card for the day. The final card for the day is the Blood Sky Massacre. It is a saga for 1, a black and red. First chapter is create a 2/3 Demon Berserker creature token with menace. And when a Berserker attack, second chapter is when a Berserker attacks this turn, you draw a card and lose a life, which is nice when you attack with the tribal deck, that it gives you some card draw at the, at the cost of your life, but that's very in theme. And then third and final chapter is add a red mana for each Berserker you control until the end of the turn. Okay, again, free mana can get a little fucky, but I see this card will only be as good as Berserkers is, but I see it being really good in Berserkers. So we'll give like a 2 out of 5, maybe a 3, but I'm not like too convinced that Berserkers will be great. But I could be wrong. But again, we'll give it a 2 out of 3 to be positive. And with that, that's all the spoilers for today. So I wanted to say thank you all for watching. And of course, depending on when the set is released, I'll probably do another one of these little spoiler list and how I think they'll act next week. Of course, today, as I'm recording it, is Monday, January the 18th of 2021. So it'll probably be next Monday I do this in. And I believe our video, or regularly scheduled weekly deck tech kind of video, might be on this little Arclight Phoenix Hollow one deck that I've been brewing with and have some fun with. So with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in a few days. Have a great day, and be good to each other.